Chapter 3676. Keeping people in suspense was also very particular. The auctioneer was able to stay in the auction for a long time. Naturally, he had his unique skills. After attracting everyone's curiosity, the auctioneer opened the wooden box with a crazy expression at the most appropriate time. Everyone stretched their necks and looked at the thing in the wooden box. After the wooden chest was opened, there was no dazzling golden light or dazzling golden light. Everyone could clearly see that in the wooden box there was a huge oval white egg. That's right, it was an egg. Everyone was a little confused. There were thousands of thoughts in their minds and a lot of guesses. But they did not expect that in the wooden box there was a white egg. Why was the auctioneer so excited about an egg? This egg, what kind of egg was it? Everyone's heart was full of doubts and puzzlement. The auctioneer's eyes were full of obsession, staring closely at the huge white egg in the wooden box, saying word by word, "That's right, you're not wrong, this is an egg." But do you know what kind of egg this is? Looking at everyone's puzzled expression, and the way they shook their heads and answered, "No." The auctioneer suddenly laughed. Eggs are usually the continuation of life. This egg is the mother beast giving birth to a young beast. What beast is it? So mysterious. It looks like it should be a beast egg above the level of a phantom beast. Master auctioneer, don't keep us guessing, what kind of beast egg is that? Everyone's interest was also aroused and they asked aloud. The auctioneer laughed and spread out his hands, his voice excited and inspiring. This is a dragon egg. Dragon? Did I hear that right? Dragon egg? Master auctioneer, you said, this is a dragon egg? Don't tell me inside that egg is a young dragon. No, it can't be dragon egg. How could there be a dragon egg here? Whether it was in the Nirvana realm or the Earth realm. For dragons, in the ears of everyone, they were all myths. The dragon race was indeed too rare. And dragons also represented the absolute symbol of noble status. This was actually a dragon egg? Didn't that mean, if anyone could slap this dragon egg back, they would be able to do so? After the young dragon was born, whoever would be able to form a contract with this young dragon, and then become the master of the dragon. Everyone's hearts were boiling with excitement. Each and every one of them stared at the giant white egg with the same fanaticism as the auctioneer. When Yiqing Luo heard the auctioneer's words, she couldn't help but raise her slender brows. Interested? Zhu Wuxia was extremely attentive towards the changes in Yiqing Luo's expression. Yiqing Luo laughed lightly. Look at me, do I look like someone who would be interested in other dragons? No one had ever seen a dragon before. But not only did he become brothers with the humanoid dragon, he had also formed a contract with the head of the 4 great divine beasts, the Azure Dragon, which was also the leader of the dragons, the dragon ancestor. There was also a pet that was half dragon and half leopard. For the other dragons, she did not feel that kind of surprise at all. Zhou Xian said indifferently, "It's a little strange that the Sincerity Trading House can take out a dragon egg. I have imagined many rare treasures, but I never thought that Zhongcheng's ultimate move would be a dragon egg." Yiqing Luo sighed helplessly. From everyone's expressions, it's obvious that they are extremely interested in the dragon egg. How could he not be interested? Who didn't want to contract a dragon as their battle pet? To be able to tame a dragon. That wasn't just in terms of ability, it would be of great help and upgrade to oneself. Chapter 3677. His battle pet was a dragon. Wouldn't he look good if he said it out? If you don't want Zhongqing to win, I can destroy that dragon egg. Zhu Wuxia raised his hand as he placed it in front of Yiqing Luo. He didn't touch Yiqing Luo's face. Only through the air he gently traced Yiqing Luo's brows. His voice was very calm and there was no deeper meaning in his words. You're wrinkled here. It doesn't look good. I don't like it. Yiqing Luo, again. When did this iceberg man become so understanding? He even knew how to imitate the way the auctioneer caressed the dragon egg and caressed her from afar. Although it was not touched by Zhu Wuxia. But Yiqing Luo's heart still had a creepy feeling. She rubbed her arms and took a few steps back. Don't mess around. Who doesn't know that you and I are in cahoots? If you destroy the dragon egg, isn't that telling everyone that I'm doing this for the sake of winning the bet? Just as Yiqing Luo retreated, Zhu Wuxia also withdrew his hand. He lightly said, I just don't want to see you unhappy. Watch the show, don't stare at me. Yiqing Luo raised her hand and blocked his gaze. Then he turned his gaze back to the dragon egg. Xiao Yilu has put in a lot of effort to prepare such a great show. If I don't take a good look, I'll be letting her down. Down below, everyone went crazy because of the dragon egg. This kind of crazy energy. It was exactly the same as the beautifying cream he had just seen. Many people from other factions were secretly rejoicing that their wives and daughters had failed to win the facial beautifying cream. Otherwise, how would they have any crystals left to bid for the dragon eggs? Compared to the dragon egg, what kind of beauty ointment was trash? Seeing the enthusiasm of the crowd, the auctioneer smiled more confidently. He raised the hammer in his hand again, spread out one hand, pointed at the dragon egg and said, "Now the auction for the dragon egg will begin. The starting price is 100 million spar, and each increment must be no less than 10 million spar. I hereby announce that the bidding begins now. 100 million crystals, and not less than 10 million crystals each time." This was probably the first time in the history of the auction that an item had such a high base price. It had simply set a record for the lowest bid in an auction. But this base price did not extinguish the enthusiasm of the crowd. On the contrary, it made everyone even more excited. After all, this was a dragon egg. Do you know what a dragon egg is? It would be a divine beast the moment it was born. Just a breath of air could cause 3 tremors. The higher the base price, the more it could prove the authenticity of this dragon egg. When the auctioneer finished speaking, someone had already begun to bid crazily. 101 million spar. 150 million spar. The bidding trend was no less than that of the beautifying ointment earlier. No, it was even worse. This bid was much crazier than the beautifying cream. The highest bid for a bottle of beautifying ointment was more than 100 million crystal stones. As for this dragon egg, it was worth 100 million, 100 million. 200 million spar. I bid 250 million. 300 million. This bid was going straight up. In the end, only the representatives of the major forces were left, and they refused to give way to each other. When the price of the dragon egg had already reached 400 million crystal stones, the people on Treasure Gathering's side were all panicking. Pei Xing stood rooted to the ground and his face was filled with disbelief. Chapter 3678. Bam! A loud sound was heard and the table in the private room shattered into pieces. Old Lai's face was filled with anger as he rolled up his sleeves. "I'm going to smash that dragon egg." He was aggressive and was about to leap over the railing to the first floor to stir up trouble. Xiao Yinyan reacted quickly and immediately pulled Old Lai back. "Senior, don't be rash." "I'm calmer than ever." Old Lai glared at him. Xiao Yinyan didn't let go. "Senior, if you smash that dragon egg, do you think everyone will push the blame to the Hell Palace or Aluo?" Old Lai's figure suddenly stiffened. Public opinion. Of course they would push it to Yiqing Luo. No one dared to blame the Hell Palace. They would only feel that his actions were all instigated by Yiqing Luo. If he really destroyed the dragon egg, the one who would bear the consequences would be Yiqing Luo. Old Lai clenched his fists tightly as he endured his impulse and gritted his teeth. "Then, what should we do now?" A lousy dragon egg had actually soared to such a high amount. Plus the auction items in the Middle City's exchange hall. It was only a matter of time before it surpassed the total amount of the treasure. Wait and see. Xiao Yinyan couldn't think of any other way. The auction for the dragon egg had already started. Destroying the dragon egg, stopping the auction and so on were all unrealistic. Wait for the amount over at Zhongqing to exceed the treasure? Old Lai was furious. "You're the eldest young master of the Qiao family. Don't you know anything about Zhongqing having a dragon egg?" Xiao Yinyan's face suddenly darkened. He pursed his lips tightly as he shook his head. Looking at Zhongqing's exchange hall, when they brought out the dragon egg as the last auction item, he was also very shocked. Not only him. Even Patriarch Qiao would feel surprised. Qiao Yilu was able to quietly hide it from everyone and bring the dragon egg to the auction. How on earth did she do it? Based on Qiao Yilu's character, if she had the dragon egg, she would absolutely not allow Yiqing Luo to suppress her. She would definitely bring out the dragon egg to suppress the beauty cream's limelight. But Qiao Yilu didn't make a sound. Did Qiao Yilu look like someone who would keep her grievances in her stomach? Xiao Yinyan's heart grew heavier. He felt that many things were starting to get out of his control. In Zhu Wuxian's private room, there's still a gap of about 200 million crystals. Zhu Xian looked at Yiqing Luo as his lips curled into a faint smile. According to this trend, it's only a matter of time before Zhongqing surpasses Congregate Bao. Yiqing Luo propped up her chin and raised her long and narrow eyebrows. From your tone, it seems like you have a way to solve the problem? There is indeed a way. Chu Wuxin met her eyes. I will bid for the dragon egg. Everyone knew that his private room was the private room of the Scarlet Clarity Pavilion's pavilion master. He was the one to bid. This also represented the Hongqing Pavilion's bid. Even if the profound practitioners of the major cities wanted to obtain the dragon egg like crazy, he definitely wouldn't dare to fight with the Hongqing Pavilion's pavilion master. Once Zhu Wuxin opened his mouth to bid, whoever opened their mouth would be going against the Scarlet Clarity Pavilion. The price would naturally stop at the amount given by Zhu Wuxin. In this way, the total amount of Zhongcheng's auction would absolutely not be able to exceed Congregate Bao's total amount. This is indeed a good idea. Yiqing Luo laughed lightly when she heard that. Chapter 3679. Yiqing Luo's eyes gradually deepened, appearing extremely serene. But in Without Embroiling City, he had lost his integrity as a businessman. Yiqing Luo retracted her gaze. The radiance in her eyes was suffused with a faint brilliance. I can't possibly leave such a mess for him to clean up. He is a very good businessman. Chu Wuxian didn't shift his gaze because she shifted her gaze. His eyes were fixed on Yiqing Luo's face. He took in Yiqing Luo's expression and the flickering in her eyes. He gave a low laugh. His voice was magnetic and very alluring. It's indeed you. As long as you are willing to treat someone sincerely, you will think for the other party. Yiqing Luo didn't reply him. However, Zhu Wuxin merely chuckled to himself. You agreed to accompany me during the auction because you have already acknowledged me as a friend in your heart, right? He was laughing. But his tone revealed a trace of self-ridicule. Are you feeling heartache for me or feeling guilty towards me towards your feelings? Yiqing Luo's eyelashes trembled slightly. Her eyelids drooped slightly, her pink lips moved as though she wanted to say something. But in the end she still didn't say anything. Between the two of them it fell into silence again. Below in the auction hall the enthusiasm was soaring, the shouting of prices was still rising. The auctioneer continued to drive the rhythm, bringing the rhythm of the bidding to a new height. At this moment the price of the dragon egg had already reached 400 million crystals. 400 million crystals. To a large powerhouse it was already very strenuous. And now, those who were still participating in the auction were only those few large powerhouses from various main cities. Even City Lord Lu, as well as the representatives from the other two main cities, also participated in the auction. But 400 million crystals, if they really took out so many crystals at one go, to their current powerhouse's development, it would definitely have an impact. And they still had to go to the second division's forces to raise money. It was very easy to shake the powerhouse's foundations. But the various powerhouses' representatives had another thought. To be able to obtain a dragon egg to hatch a dragon battle pet which belonged to them, it would definitely be able to let their own powerhouses to go up another level. By then the other powerhouses of the same level would have to give face to the dragon battle pet and take a step back. Thinking like this, no matter how much their hearts ached, there were still a few representatives who raised their bidding cards with trembling hands. After a series of exchanges, at the later stages, the increase in price was getting smaller and smaller. In the end, only 5 forces were left and they were still struggling. This dragon egg was auctioned off for a sky-high price. The gap between Zhongcheng and Zhu Bao's total amount was also getting closer and closer. The forces that had given up on bidding were also filled with anxiety. They were guessing who could obtain this dragon egg. There were also many people who looked at the private room of the treasure-gathering hall and sighed regretfully. No one had expected this. In the end, the Zhongqing trading house would bring out such a dragon egg, which directly suppressed the heat of the beauty cream. Dragon egg. Once it hatched, that was a genuine mythological beast. It could fight, assist, and even act as a mount. Who gets this dragon egg? In the future, there would be changes in the powers of the 3 main cities. Until the price of the dragon egg reached 500 million crystal stones. The difference between the 2 trading houses had already shrunk to a negligible amount. All of a sudden, the atmosphere of the auction became heavy. Chapter 3680. It was also because they were anxious about who would get the best honor in the auction. At least 80% of the people had bet a huge amount of crystals on the bet between Mysterious Fairy and Di Luo. They were all waiting quietly for the final result. By now, the people who were bidding were only Shadowless City's #1 family's representative, City Lord Lu, and Yenless City's City Lord's forces, who were still struggling. The bidding speed of the three parties had clearly slowed down. They were all carefully testing each other's bottom line. Just at this moment, the auctioneer suddenly raised his voice. Those forces who still want to participate in the Dragon Egg auction must be sincere in bidding for the Dragon Egg. I'll make the decision here. Those who want to continue bidding can come to the front and observe the Dragon Egg up close. Up close. Being in close contact with the Dragon Egg. These words made the crowd cry out in shock. Those three forces who were originally in a dilemma about whether to continue bidding or not, their hearts started to churn again. There were also a few people who had given up on bidding, and they also stood up. About 6 people approached the auction stage. When Yiqing Luo saw this, her slender brows rose as she was slightly astonished. That auctioneer. I feel that something's not right. Previously, he disregarded the auction's regulations and directly stated that the Dragon Egg was Zhongqing Exchange's auction item. Now he made his own decision to let the bidders go up close to the auction stage to observe the auction item? This didn't conform to the auction's regulations, right? But no matter if it was the executive elder or the hall master, no one spoke out to stop him. Looking at those people as they neared the auction stage, Yiqing Luo's heart unknowingly surged with a strange feeling. Inexplicable uneasiness. In order to bid for the Dragon Egg to be auctioned at a higher price, to let the bidders be in close contact, it will amplify their desire for the Dragon Egg. Chu Wuxia didn't find it strange at all. Yiqing Luo shook her head. No. He felt something was amiss. But she couldn't tell what was wrong. Just like this, those 6 forces representatives walked up to the auction stage. Both their eyes stared intently at that huge white dragon egg in the wooden box. Someone wanted to stretch out his hand to touch it. But the auctioneer grabbed his wrist. You can observe, but you absolutely cannot touch it. This dragon egg is about to hatch. If you touch it and cause the dragon egg to crack prematurely, that would be bad. The auctioneer's words sounded like persuasion. However, the representatives' eyes lit up when they heard this. The 6 of them surrounded the wooden box and squatted down. His eyes were fixed on the giant egg as if he wanted to see through the eggshell to see the divine dragon beast hidden within the giant egg. I'll add 10 million spar. A representative raised his hand, clenched his teeth and shouted. The dragon egg was about to hatch. They had to quickly auction off the dragon egg. Only then could he form a contract with the young dragon the moment the dragon egg hatched. Otherwise, once the dragon egg hatched, it would possess the strength of a dragon. It would be troublesome for them to form a contract with it. The people from the other forces had obviously thought of this as well. Hearing the increase in price, he immediately followed up. Another round of fierce fighting ensued. In the eyes of the crowd, the auctioneer let several bidders run to the auction stage. It was to entice them to continue bidding. But the more Yiqing Luo looked, the more flustered she felt. Her eyebrows tightly knit together. The restlessness in his heart grew stronger and stronger. Crack. Chapter 3681. Yiqing Luo's brows moved as she glanced sideways at Zhou Wuxia. Did you hear something? What? Zhou Wuxia turned his head to look at her, not understanding the meaning of her words. This expression meant that he didn't hear anything. Strange. Under such a clamorous atmosphere. Why did she seem to have heard the sound of something cracking? Surveying the surroundings, it seemed as though no one else had heard that cracking sound. What was that sound? Yiqing Luo's heart, because of that subtle sound, became even more apprehensive and uneasy. Something's not right. I sensed a gush of intense yin qi. In her mind, old man Song's panicky and solemn voice rang. Yiqing Luo's breathing froze slightly. It seemed that the inexplicable feeling that had welled up in her heart was not an illusion. But really, something big was about to happen. Yiqing Luo's slender fingers clenched tightly. Where did that sound come from? What was it that made her feel uneasy and had a bad premonition? What was it? Suddenly, she seemed to have thought of something as she abruptly raised her head and looked straight at the auction stage. If she didn't remember wrongly, It seemed to be when the auctioneer invited the bidders to observe the dragon egg from a close distance. Her heart seemed to have foreseen some danger as a strange feeling started to spread. Which meant to say, the problem was on the auction stage. What's the matter? Zhu Xian noticed the change in Yiqing Luo's emotions as well as her entire aura had turned severe. What happened? Something happened. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips as she replied with 3 words. Her gaze swept past the auction stage inch by inch. Just when she saw a spot, her pupils suddenly constricted. Oh no. Yiqing Luo's eyes widened as she looked at that spot in disbelief. Immediately after, without waiting for Zhu Xian to ask, she had already stood up and with a leap she stepped onto the railing. Leaping down from the 2nd floor, she rushed towards the auction stage. Quickly move aside. That's not a dragon egg. Following Yiqing Luo's words, a crack sound was heard. In the wooden box, that huge white egg suddenly cracked into pieces of eggshell. Then a dragon head the size of a fist poked out from the top of the eggshell. The dragon's head was white, and the dragon horns on its head were like white jade, sparkling and translucent. It looked small and cute. Dragon. The dragon has hatched. Hurry. Let the dragon see me. Beasts are very reliant on the first person they see. The young dragon is born. Quick. Snatch the young dragons. When the dragon head entered everyone's sight, everyone went crazy. Even the episode where Yiqing Luo suddenly rushed out and shouted, "That's not a dragon egg," was all thrown to the back of his head. One by one they swarmed towards the dragon egg. Yiqing Luo's heart sank as she spoke out once again, "Don't go over, that's not a dragon." However, the frenzied crowd totally didn't listen to Yiqing Luo's words. He just wanted to rush to the front and be the first person the young dragon saw when it opened its eyes. As long as he was acknowledged by the young dragon. I don't care what price you bid. Now that the dragon whelp had acknowledged him, no one could snatch it away. Everyone had overlooked. That auctioneer who was originally standing on the auction stage had no intention to stop everyone. Instead he silently disappeared in front of everyone's eyes. Whereas in the midst of the crowd that dragon head poked out as it slowly opened its eyes. Chapter 3682. Behind him someone was tearing at his body. Because of this the wooden box kept shaking. The oval-shaped half-broken dragon egg was swaying back and forth. The white dragon's head was also swaying back and forth. Just as the fingers of the city lord of Yen City were about to be torn off. The white dragon suddenly opened its eyes. At first glance it met the eyes of the city lord of Yen City. The people of Yama Free City's city lord faction were so ecstatic that they almost screamed out loud. When the white dragon opened its eyes, the rest of the people rushed over in a frenzy. In the madness. Yet no one noticed it. The dragon's entire body was snow white, but when it opened its eyes they were as black as ink. Black and gloomy. It was so dark that not even a trace of reflection could be seen in those eyes. There was only endless darkness. The city lord of Yen City threw himself to the side of the wooden box in joy. The first thing it saw was me. It was me. None of you should fight for it. As he spoke he reached out to the dragon egg. He saw the dragon's dark eyes staring at him. The city lord of Yen City was so excited that his palms were sweating. The people around him were still pushing and shoving. It was at this moment, when the city lord of Yen City's hand touched the white dragon's head, the white dragon suddenly opened its mouth and bit down on that person's hand. That person did not dodge. Instead he was overjoyed. This was the beast race's contract method. However, in the next moment, that person's expression changed. He wanted to shake off the white dragon in fear. However, before he could make any reaction, Yizichen his entire person seemed to have aged in an instant. In the blink of an eye, only a set of clothes was left, fluttering to the ground. This scene caused the surrounding crowd to be stunned for a few breaths of time. What's going on? Where's the city lord of Yen City's representative? I was just grabbing him. Why did he suddenly? His clothes. These are his clothes. An unknown fear surged in everyone's heart. His excitement over the appearance of the young dragon slowly faded away as well. They did not have a chance to rest or search for answers. They did not have to look for him. Because, in the next instant, the answer to the disappearance of the representative of the city lord of No Yen City appeared on its own. While everyone was still in shock. The white dragon had left the eggshell at some point in time. The fist-sized dragon-shaped body looked very cute. But what it was doing was shocking. Help! This dragon, this dragon! Screams of pain resounded in the auction hall one after another. The white dragon quickly swam among the crowd. Whenever it saw someone, it would open its mouth and bite them. In just a few breaths, the person who was bitten was only left with a piece of clothing. The scariest thing was, when the white dragon bit a person, its body would gradually grow bigger. He watched as pieces of clothes fell to the ground. How could everyone not understand what was going on? That white dragon was a monster. A man-eating monster. Everyone frantically ran towards the entrance of the auction. Yiqing Luo's brows creased tightly as she looked at the chaotic scene in front of her. Her line of sight quickly wandered around the surroundings. Finally, she locked onto a corner where 4 figures were trying to leave quietly. Yiqing Luo's brows creased as she speedily flew away. Chapter 3683. The executive elder's expression changed slightly. The expressions of the 2 hall masters darkened. Hall Master Lu was infuriated when he saw Yiqing Luo. If we don't leave, don't tell me we're waiting to be eaten by that monster? Aren't you the guards of the auction? Now that something has happened, you want to be the first to run? Yiqing Luo raised her brows as she teased them. The 2 hall masters exchanged glances. Hall Master Ji coughed softly. We're just going to mobilize our men. We have to seal off the auction to prevent the monster from escaping and causing panic. Really? Yiqing Luo curled her lips into a smile which didn't look like a smile, with an obvious look of disbelief. Hall Master Ji coughed again. Of course it's true. Yiqing Luo looked at her with a smile which didn't look like a smile. Then he put down his hand and moved away. Hall Master Ji. You're letting them leave just like that? Hall Master Ji and Hall Master Lu didn't have time to think about it. Looking at the chaos in the field, more and more clothes fell to the ground. They were no longer in the mood to investigate further. Directly bypassing Yiqing Luo, he ran towards the door. Seeing this, the executive elder also wanted to chase after him. Yiqing Luo smiled as she stretched out her hand to stop the both of them. They are going to mobilize their manpower, the both of you. Where are you going? The executive elder's expression froze. We are also going. You're going to mobilize people too? Wasn't the executive elder supposed to enforce the rules of the auction? Who's the person behind you? Yiqing Luo blinked her long eyelashes, pretending to be puzzled as she asked. Executive elder's face sunk as he was unable to reply Yiqing Luo's words. They might as well struggle free from Yiqing Luo's hands and couldn't be bothered to reply as they dashed towards the main entrance of the auction. However, he heard the young girl's mocking laughter behind him. Do you really think that you can really leave the auction venue? The executive elder stopped in his tracks. What does that mean? What do you mean, could they leave the auction? The executive elder suddenly raised his head and looked in the direction of the door. The 2 hall masters rushed out of the main gate at full speed. But, in the next instant, the 2 of them reappeared in their line of sight. The 2 of them were obviously very surprised and their expressions became extremely ugly. They clasped their hands tightly together and walked towards the crowded door again. However, they still returned to the auction venue. This scene stunned the executive elder as well. Their expressions congealed tightly as though they had thought of something as all of them abruptly turned around and looked at Yiqing Luo. Do you know something? The girl leaned her shoulder against the wall, her veil fluttering in the wind, outlining a perfect curve. A pair of long and narrow eyes, languid and satisfied. He didn't look like he was in danger at all. Executive elders exchanged glances as they took quick steps towards Yiqing Luo. Earlier, before the dragon egg had cracked open, you shouted that it wasn't a dragon egg, that wasn't a dragon. Do you know what is that thing? Yiqing Luo's expression changed slightly. Another elder asked, what's going on? Why can't we leave the auction? One could tell just by looking at the 2 hall masters. Trying to escape through the gate. After passing through the gate, he returned to the auction venue. It was like a ghost hitting a wall. Executive elder recalled the relationship between Yiqing Luo and Red Clear Pavilion as his expression turned grave. Did the pavilion master of Red Clear Pavilion tell you something? Chapter 3684. Miss D, this matter is extremely serious. If we don't settle this as soon as possible, the entire auction, no, to put it more accurately, everyone in the auction will be locked here. When the executive elder was saying this, his face turned extremely pale. Yiqing Luo nodded. Looks like you've realized it. Yiqing Luo's words made the executive elder's face turn even more steely. You really knew what would happen? The executive elder's words attracted the surrounding panic-stricken crowd as they all looked over. After witnessing the white dragon opening its mouth and sucking a person dry, he wanted to escape, but he failed countless times. Everyone's hearts were filled with panic, irritation, and anxiety. Now that they suddenly heard the executive elder's words, the crowd seemed to have found a point to vent as they uniformly gathered around. Executive elder, what did you say? This lady, she knew all of this long ago? Right. Earlier, before the white dragon came out from the eggshell, I heard her shouting that it's not a dragon egg. I heard it too. Initially, when I saw her appear, I thought she was trying to create a scene because she wasn't able to get the first prize, so I specially took a few more glances. I also heard her shouting that it's not a dragon egg, that monster isn't a dragon at all. The crowd then started to recall Yiqing Luo's existence. Recalling what Yiqing Luo had said after she rushed down from the second floor's private room. How do you know that it's not a dragon egg? Did you already know all of this long ago? Or should I say, actually all of this was designed by you? Hearing the various large powerhouses' cultivators as they kept on berating her, Yiqing Luo started to laugh. Facing the crowd's accusations, even the expression on her face didn't change at all. She only glanced at the crowd lazily as she gave a smile which didn't look like a smile. What benefits do I get from scheming against you? I even included myself in the scheme. Do you think I'm silly? You just don't want to let the treasure gathering to lose the bet with Zhongqing exchange. So you intentionally. Before she could finish her words, she was interrupted by Yiqing Luo with a laugh. Looks like you're really quite silly. Yiqing Luo's long and narrow eyes narrowed as a biting cold aura burst forth. She raised a finger. First, this thing was obtained by Zhongqing Trading House. It has nothing to do with me or treasure gathering. Then he raised his second finger. Secondly, this thing, before it finally breaks out of its shell, the bidding price is 500 million crystals. According to the total amount of the two trading houses, the total amount of crystals that the Treasures Trading House has will not necessarily be lower than the Zhongqing Trading House. At this point, the girl's voice was clearly suppressed, revealing an irresistible coercion. Thirdly, I do not know what kind of monster this thing is. However, I am certain that it is not a dragon. At the most crucial moment I did warn you, but none of you listened to me. Yiqing Luo slowly retracted her raised hand as her arms crossed over her chest, as she calmly glanced at the crowd in front of her. You've lost quite a number of elites, which can only mean that they are overly greedy. Everyone was so stunned by Yiqing Luo's frenzied rebuke that they didn't say a single word of rebuttal. Indeed, at that time, everyone wanted to be the first person the young dragon saw. Chapter 3685. They had no right to blame Yiqing Luo. Luo. Not far away, Pei Xing's worried voice was heard. Pei Xing, Qiao Yinyan and Old Lai hurriedly rushed towards her direction. Seeing that the three of them were fine, Yiqing Luo was relieved. Just as her lips curled up and walked towards them, a burst of exclamations rang around. Only to see that white dragon, which had the size of an adult man, rushing towards Pei Xing's direction with lightning speed. That white dragon's target was very obvious. Almost without any hesitation. The surrounding people were also frightened by this scene as they fled in all directions. For fear of being bitten by the white dragon. Xing, be careful. Yiqing Luo's expression congealed as she flipped her wrist and a flame feather fan leapt out from her fingertips. Following that, a beautiful wind blade pressed towards the white dragon. As this imposing manner pressed downwards, the wind blade exploded on the white dragon's body. The explosive sound shocked the surroundings. The crowd felt as though the ground they were standing on was shaking violently because of the explosion. Although Yiqing Luo's move was to force the white dragon away and quickly released her strength, but the profound energy which was gathered was obviously directed towards the white dragon. Following that, the young lady leapt. Her fiery red dress fluttered in the sky. Her dress fluttered in the wind like the tail of a phoenix spreading its wings, drawing a beautiful arc in the air. Just as Yiqing Luo made her move, Pei Xing also reacted as he swiftly dodged to the other side. Following that, he felt a strong gust of yin qi brushing past him. Although it didn't seep into his body, but he was pushed back a few steps by the remaining power of the yin qi. Xiao Yinyan was still shouting vigilantly beside his ear. Pei Xing didn't let his guard down just because he avoided the first wave of Yinqi attack. He rolled on the ground and avoided it again. At the same time, Yiqing Luo had already leapt in front of him. The fingers holding the glower flame fan flicked quickly. Like an excited fairy, the most beautiful brilliance was blooming on her fingertips. Boom boom boom. The glower flame fan released the profound energy, like a hot knife through butter, directly towards the white dragon's face. The powerful pressure shocked the surroundings. The ground shook. Like a spiderweb, it spread out densely. Everyone hid very far away. They were afraid that if they were not careful, the white dragon would turn around and attack them again. Basically, those who were bitten by the white dragon would not have the strength to fight back. In an instant they would be sucked dry by the white dragon. That lady, isn't she Lady D from the treasure-gathering sect? Isn't she a friend of that lord from the Red Clearness Pavilion? Doesn't she know that the monster is invulnerable? Profound energy attacks have no effect on that monster at all. I'm afraid that young lady's life is in danger. Why didn't the Lord of the Red Clearness Pavilion help her? If that lord takes action, this monster will definitely be dealt with. Yiqing Luo was restraining the white dragon, and at the same time she was filtering the important contents of the crowd's discussion, as she memorized it in her mind. Invulnerable? Impervious to fire and water? Could it be that her guess was right? Thinking of this, Yiqing Luo's expression turned grave. Bang! The sound of a heavy object falling to the ground was heard. Thick black mist spread in all directions. The crowd only saw something being thrown out by a majestic force. The crowd shook their heads helplessly. Looks like that lord from the Red Clearness Pavilion really has no intention to take action. This young lady. Such a pity. That regretful tone had yet to finish. Chapter 3686. The black fog dispersed. The thing that flew out smashed heavily on the ground, creating a huge crater. And in that deep pit, it was an entirely white thing. Wait, wasn't that the monster which looked like a white dragon? The thing which was sent flying was that white dragon monster. Everyone was stunned by the scene in front of them. Her attack is effective against that monster? The profound energy fluctuations on her, isn't that powerful? Why was she able to send that monster flying? What's going on? Did any of you see clearly what she did earlier? Everyone's hearts were filled with questions. Those present were basically from various main cities, various powerhouses. Naturally, their abilities were all above average. Because of this, Yiqing Luo's level of profound energy was considered normal among them. But, was this really normal? Their attacks and counterattacks had no effect on the white dragon monster at all. Yiqing Luo's attack was able to send that monster flying. When that monster, swaying its body, climbed out of the deep pit, that made everyone even more stunned. That monster swayed as it stood up. With a cautious sound, that jade-like white dragon horn on the top of its head directly broke off from its head. Half of the dragon horn hung on its head. It swayed for a few times. Finally, it still fell off from its head, dropping onto the ground. What made everyone's hair stand was, after the dragon horn was broken, but not a drop of blood was seen. That white monster totally didn't feel any pain. It totally didn't bother about the half of the dragon horn which had dropped on the ground. Roar! A deafening dragon roar came from the white monster's mouth. The white monster's figure, which was about the size of an adult man, suddenly leapt towards the sky. A spiraling dragon body instantly appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Such a huge dragon covered the entire sky. It was a patch of gray. The surrounding scenery also became darker by a lot. Dragon. It's really a dragon. This dragon. What on earth is this dragon? What does it want to do? Everyone was extremely shocked. In their hearts there was fear towards the white dragon, but also yearning. Yiqing Luo raised her head and looked at the hovering white dragon which covered the entire sky as her slender brows creased slightly. Then his gaze fell on the ground on the half of the dragon horn. However, she did not pay too much attention to the white dragon. Instead, he put away the glowing flame fan and slowly walked towards Pei Xing. Xing, are you all right? Pei Xing's face was filled with shock as he looked at the white dragon which was circling in the sky, and then looked at Yiqing Luo in shock. You're the one who's all right? That's a real dragon? Oh. Yiqing Luo shook her head with a grave expression, I roughly know how this white dragon came to be. I'm not mistaken, this thing is very difficult to deal with. Pei Xing did her best to calm herself down. Then, can we still walk out of the auction? Pei Xing's question was exactly what everyone wanted to ask. The two executive elders were the closest to Yiqing Luo. He also heard Yiqing Luo denying that white dragon's identity and opened his mouth to ask, "You say that's not a dragon, then what is that thing?" No matter how one looked at it, it was a dragon. Especially now it was spiraling in midair. That mighty and domineering look was totally a dragon. But when they heard Di Luo say that it wasn't a dragon. Chapter 3687. Yiqing Luo replied with a question, "Do you believe me?" The executive elder was stunned. How were they supposed to answer this question? They didn't understand this young lady in front of them. How were they supposed to believe her? And this young lady's ability was probably not as good as theirs. Only when they looked at Yiqing Luo's calm face. There was an inexplicable feeling in their hearts. At this moment, those who were nearer to them had no time to dwell on this question. They looked in awe at the white dragon which was circling above their heads. Even though it had lost that pair of dragon horns, as a dragon's prestige it still existed. Thinking of the terror of the white dragon, they had no other choice. They were almost choking with sobs. We believe you. Misty, we believe you. So, I beg you, please ask the people from Red Clear Pavilion to save us. Here only Yiqing Luo's attack could cause harm to that monster. If they wanted to leave this place alive, they could only rely on Yiqing Luo. The commotion over here naturally attracted the attention of the hall masters beside them. Hall Master Lu squinted his lively and adorable eyes as the expression on his face was very cold. If you want us to believe you, shouldn't you first take out the capital to make us believe you? At the very least, you have to tell me what exactly is that monster. Yiqing Luo looked at Hall Master Lu calmly as her emotions were very indifferent. If you don't believe me, even if I tell you what that monster is, you won't believe me. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. The atmosphere froze for a moment. Just at this moment, the silent executive elder suddenly opened his mouth. We believe you. The two hall masters frowned as they looked at the executive elder. Their mouths moved, but in the end they didn't say anything. Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards as her long and narrow eyes curled into a sinister arc. She slowly raised her head and looked at the white monster in the sky. Following that, she slowly looked at the surrounding crowd. Finally her gaze fixed on a corner. How long does Without Embroiling City's mysterious maiden intend to hide for? Everyone was waiting for Yiqing Luo's reply. Hearing Yiqing Luo's words, many pairs of eyes turned in the direction of the corner in unison. Without Embroiling City's mysterious maiden? Qiao Yulu? What did she mean by mentioning Princess Yulu at this time? Under everyone's gaze, a slender figure slowly walked out from the darkness. The woman was dressed in white and had a graceful bearing. A confident and flamboyant smile hung on her beautiful face. She just stood there looking down at everyone with a superior attitude. Princess Yulu. Qiao Yinyan's heart sank as he looked at the imposing woman before him. A sense of unease welled up in everyone's hearts. He seemed to have guessed something, but he couldn't believe it. Yiqing Luo looked at Qiao Yulu indifferently as she said word by word. Just as what you think, that monster was brought by Without Embroiling City's mysterious maiden. As soon as these words came out, it caused a huge commotion. Everyone looked at Qiao Yulu in disbelief. Why? Princess Yulu wants to do such a thing? This is Without Embroiling City. If she ruins the auction, wouldn't Without Embroiling City be the one to suffer? What's in it for her? Listening to everyone's doubtful discussion, Yiqing Luo's lips twitched. This must be the celebrity effect. Because Qiao Yulu was mysterious maiden. So even in her heart she guessed that this matter had something to do with Qiao Yulu. Chapter 3688. Yiqing Luo tilted her head as her lips curled upwards, giving a sarcastic smile. If I didn't guess wrongly to cause such a consequence, mysterious maiden, you yourself should be very flustered, right? She asked each and every word. Her tone rose slightly. As expected. After Yiqing Luo's words were questioned, Qiao Yulu's arrogant face froze for a moment. Her beautiful eyes flickered as she suppressed the fluster in her heart, maintaining her voice to be more dignified. The dragon egg is indeed the auction item that Zhongqing Trading House had spent a lot of effort to obtain. As you said, I am also very shocked to cause such a consequence because I don't know anything at all. Oh. Yiqing Luo laughed lightly. You're shocked not because you don't know anything but because you're merely being used by those people once again. She tilted her head, her black hair spread behind her back, contrasting with that blazing red dress. It was dazzling and moving. She smiled as her eyes were filled with ridicule. You really don't learn to be obedient time and time again being used by the same group of people. This is the first time I've seen such a dumb person like you. Xiao Yulu's smile could not be maintained as she clenched her fists tightly. I'm not cheated. Although Zhongqing has some responsibility for this matter, but don't think of pushing all the responsibility onto me. Don't be in a hurry to deny or refute. Yiqing Luo's smile remained unchanged. The person behind you, I'm afraid his motive is not just to deal with me. She paused as her gaze swept across the crowd. Could it be that until now, everyone still hasn't discovered the most important danger? Everyone's hair stood on end from Yiqing Luo's question. One by one they looked around, surveying the surroundings. Some of them stared at the white dragon monster which was hovering in the sky. Other than letting out a dragon roar from time to time, there was no movement at all. Suddenly a cry of alarm was heard. Oh no. We've fallen into a trap. Fallen into a trap? What on earth? Everyone was puzzled. Yiqing Luo also looked towards the direction of the voice. She had not expected that the first person to discover the abnormality of the auction was actually someone she knew. The people standing in that direction formed a group about 12 to 13 people. They were dressed in green and black attire. The blood-colored flower embroidered on the sleeve was very eye-catching. Weren't those people the members of the Bloody Mercenaries? The person who spoke just now was Bloody Mercenary Group's vice leader, Bo Songyi. Following behind them were a few of the team members whom he had met at the West Cliff Mountain. However, Su Qingbingbin was not there. The person who spoke was the vice leader of the Bloody Mercenary Group, who was ranked second. When everyone asked the question, their tone was rather polite. Facing the crowd's questions, Bo Songyi ignored him. Instead, he walked straight towards Yiqing Luo. You've already seen through it, right? Yiqing Luo smiled without saying a word. Bo Songyi's handsome face immediately turned into a ball. He pursed his lips tightly. After a long time he looked at Pei Xing and clenched his fists. Fortunately, Zishi didn't follow us in. Pei Xing felt as if his heart was being violently strangled by that gaze. He lowered his head and avoided eye contact with Bo Songyi. What's going on? Don't keep us guessing. Look at the time. We need to unite. That monster might be resting now. What if it starts to suck people again after it has rested enough? Chapter 3689. Yiqing Luo looked at the crowd. Her face was filled with fear. The sneer at the corner of his mouth deepened. Her lips curled into a smile which didn't look like a smile. Haven't you discovered? Today's auction is nothing but a scheme. The auction will gather representatives from the 3 main cities of the Earth realm and various powerhouses to take part in it. The people present are all considered as the top figures of the various powerhouses, and are also the core of the various powerhouses. If anything happens to you, it should have a huge impact on the powerhouses behind you, right? When the crowd heard that, they were shocked. At this moment they finally understood the meaning behind Yiqing Luo's words. In the auction, there were representatives from various powerhouses from various main cities. And they were trapped in the auction, unable to leave this place. And there was a monster which was impervious to swords and spears, water and fire, eyeing them covetously. If they were not careful, they might become the food in that monster's stomach. 3 main cities, various powerhouses' elite representatives, were trapped in the auction and faced with the danger of losing their lives. They were all annihilated. Not to mention that their powerhouses would be greatly affected. The entire Earth domain was probably going to experience an earth-shattering change. What on earth was this for? Why did they have to be trapped in the auction? Were they trying to make use of them to achieve some goal? Or to catch them all in one go, causing chaos in the Earth realm? After the crowd regained their senses, they instantly became vigilant. All of them looked around in astonishment. There were some who continued to trying to walk out of the auction. But time after time they returned to the original spot like ghosts hitting the wall. Everyone's heart bit by bit sank to the bottom. The atmosphere was terrifyingly gloomy. Some of the outer city powerhouses tensed up, stared at Xiao Yulu. It's you. It's you, right? The dragon egg is the auction item of your Zhongqing exchange. You're the one who brought the dragon egg. What motive do you have? One of them took the lead to question. The others immediately shifted their gazes onto Xiao Yulu. All of their eyes were scarlet red, as though they had grabbed onto the only hope in a difficult situation. Some of them couldn't be bothered about Xiao Yulu's mysterious maiden identity, as they rushed up to detain Xiao Yulu. Presumptuous. Xiao Yulu's expression was dignified as she shouted angrily, "You dare to touch me?" Now Xiao Yulu was arrogant. This caused the expressions of the people from the various superpowers to turn extremely ugly. What's your purpose? Why did you use the dragon egg to trap us in the auction? Xiao Yulu. Here you are no longer the Empyrean fairy. If you don't let us out, we'll kill you first. Everyone had been forced into a corner. After all, so many people had died. They were all sucked dry by the monster, leaving behind only a set of clothes. No one wants to become like that. Moreover, if Xiao Yulu had planned all of this from the very beginning, then they had traveled thousands of miles to participate in this auction. It was like a sheep walking into a tiger's den, walking into a trap. Perhaps there was a deeper conspiracy behind all of this. The more they thought about it, the more they imagined what would happen next. The more he thought about it, the more panicked he became. No one knew what would happen in the next instant. No one knew when the monster hovering in the sky would launch another attack. Chapter 3690. Ever since Xiao Yulu was born, she had always been surrounded by the stars as she grew up. Good family background. Excellent genes created her top-notch innate talent. Later on, Linglong Palace took a liking to her and nurtured her to become mysterious maiden. Since young, Xiao Yulu had never suffered any setbacks. Many things which were extremely difficult for others to do, she could do it easily. So she had never been treated in such a manner like today. In front of her, those people who were smiling amiably and fawning over her earlier were now looking at her with a furious expression as they spoke harshly. There were even people who directly took action. All their emotions were directed at her. Xiao Yulu's chest was heaving up and down violently. The anger in her eyes kept surging. Earlier she had applied the beautifying cream on her face, which had regained its original beauty. Under the contortion it started to hurt faintly. She tried her best to control the anger in her chest. She slowly raised her hand and her slender fingers gently caressed her face. This was to prevent his face from being ruined like before. Her pair of beautiful eyes were tainted with a cold frost, like floating ice, as she stared at Yiqing Luo with hatred and treachery. The humiliation that she was suffering now. It was all because of this slut. Ever since she met this slut, her smooth sailing life had disappeared. This slut was simply the bane of her existence. If it wasn't for Di Luo, how could she possibly be cheated by that bunch of black-robed men? How could she have fallen to such a state where even she herself didn't know what to do? Right. That's right. She indeed didn't know what to do. If she knew how to leave the auction, long before the white dragon mutated, she would have escaped. How could she possibly wait till now? Xiao Yulu had always thought that that bunch of black-robed men were Di Luo's enemies. But due to the Underworld Palace's power, she didn't dare to take action personally. So she secretly helped her, hoping that she could deal with Di Luo. She thought that the black-robed men passed this dragon egg to her so that she could win the bet with Di Luo. But, until the white dragon mutated and sucked all those people dry, she then understood. That bunch of black-robed men's target wasn't just Yiqing Luo. And without embroiling city. More importantly, the entire land. Xiao Yulu was able to stand out in the Linglong Hall and become without embroiling city's Empyrean lady. She was no fool. After everything that had happened, he connected it to Di Luo's speculation. She could roughly guess the purpose of the group of black-robed men with just a little thought. It had already come to this. She could only rely on herself now. If the ambition of those men in black was really that great, as the hero, it was very likely that she would get a share of the benefits. Upon having this thought, Xiao Yulu's eyes flickered, as if her face was covered in a layer of ice. Suddenly her red lips curled up, and her aura was imposing. She directly walked past the people who blocked her way and spoke harshly. His gaze was directed directly at Yiqing Luo. Di Luo, you keep saying that you're trying to push all the blame onto me. I can't help but suspect your motives. Xiao Yulu raised an eyebrow and sneered, I feel that you're jealous that I found the dragon egg and you're worried that the Sincerity Trading House will win the most honor in this auction, so you lost the bet between us. Chapter 3691. The more she spoke, the colder and more imposing Qiao Yulu's voice became. Right from the start I felt that you were very strange. I couldn't find you at all, but you suddenly appeared in Without Embroiling City, and targeted me several times, stirring up trouble in Without Embroiling City. You even bought over the citizens of Without Embroiling City, creating public opinion, making the citizens lose their loyalty to me and step by step trying to ruin my reputation. Qiao Yulu's eyes turned cold. I have always been curious, what is your intention in coming to Without Embroiling City, and what is your motive? Now this Empress finally understands. She raised her arm and pointed at Yiqing Luo. Her voice became even more powerful. From what I see, this is obviously a conspiracy between you and the Hell Palace. Qiao Yulu's speech immediately made the scales in many people's hearts start to tilt. After all, Qiao Yulu was Without Embroiling City's mysterious fairy. Moreover, Qiao Yulu's tone was so sonorous and powerful. No matter how you listened, it didn't sound like a lie. Looking at the crowd's expression because of her words, there were some changes. Qiao Yulu then raised her brows complacently as she looked at Yiqing Luo arrogantly, speaking out word by word. This Empress isn't like you with just words without any proof. The evidence that this Empress has brought out is. When the dragon egg changed, it was precisely when you jumped down from the cabin. When she said this, if there were many people who believed in Yiqing Luo's suspicions before. But now the evidence that Qiao Yulu said, made people have no choice but to doubt Yiqing Luo. Indeed. It was when Yiqing Luo jumped down from the second floor shouting something. The dragon egg cracked open. If at that time Yiqing Luo had done something making the dragon egg hatch prematurely and then mutate resulting in the current situation, it was not impossible. What nonsense are you talking about? IND Fu. Miss D's conspiracy? What conspiracy do I want to plot? Do I need to plot? Listening to Qiao Yulu's words, Lao Lai immediately exploded. He rolled up his sleeves, that horrifying face with blood scars, looked extremely sinister. I tell you, if I want to kill you, I will directly fight my way to your door. I don't have the leisure to scheme against this and that. Then he pointed at Qiao Yulu and said angrily, Little girl, don't try to slander the Underworld Palace. If you have the guts to slander the Underworld Palace, then you should have the guts to bear the consequences. He had to admit it. Old Lai was indeed like a lunatic. Especially now. He pointed at Qiao Yulu fiercely. It scared those cultivators who originally wanted to surround Yiqing Luo, so much that they moved a few steps to the side. Qiao Yulu's face paled slightly. She forcefully suppressed the fear in her heart and raised her chin. Senior from the Underworld Palace, can this queen understand that you are angry from embarrassment? In any case, being trapped in the auction, it was uncertain when he would be able to leave. The people from the Underworld Palace wouldn't be able to make it in time. Thinking of this, when Qiao Yulu looked at Lao Lai, there was no longer any fear. To hell with your mother's shame. Lao Lai's temper flared up. He waved his fists and rushed toward Qiao Yulu. Old Lai. Yiqing Luo looked at the scene which had gone out of control as she sighed and called out to Old Lai. Old Lai's body turned stiff. When he turned his head to look at Yiqing Luo, the muscles on his body were still tensed up. Yiqing Luo shook her head at him. Old Lai clenched his fists. Chapter 3692. Yiqing Luo walked up and pulled Old Lai's arm. She patted his shoulder lightly. At this moment the more irritable Old Lai was, or if he made a move, it would only prove Qiao Yulu's words. The surrounding people from the various powerhouses were all out of their wits. The misunderstanding was blown up. At this juncture it would be very troublesome. This was no longer a problem which could be solved by killing Qiao Yulu. Old Lai was pulled back by her. Yiqing Luo smiled at him. I will prove for you that this matter has nothing to do with the Hell Palace. Old Lai shook off her hand and rolled his eyes at her. Do I need any proof? The Hell Palace originally didn't have any reputation, so I'm not afraid of being blackened further. I'm just angry that a young lass dared to splash dirty water on the Hell Palace. Her desire to live is very strong, and if she doesn't want to die here, she can only choose to cooperate with the mastermind's plan. Yiqing Luo naturally saw through Qiao Yulu's plan. She raised her eyes slightly and glanced sideways at Qiao Yulu. Her eyes were slightly cold. Even if we catch Qiao Yulu for questioning, we won't be able to get anything out of her. And that monster, I'm afraid it's waiting for someone. Miss D. The executive elder's voice was heard. Are you really the instigator? His voice was filled with uncertainty and hesitation. Yiqing Luo raised her brows as her lips curled into a smile, seemingly ridiculing. Do you still remember the question I asked you earlier? The two executive elders were stunned as they frowned. When they asked Yiqing Luo if she already knew everything, Yiqing Luo asked them if they believed her. So Yiqing Luo's meaning was, if they chose to believe her, then don't ask. If they didn't, even if she answered them, they wouldn't believe her. The executive elder was instantly in a dilemma. Suddenly, one of the executive elder clenched his fists. Miss D, I believe you. You. The other executive elder looked at that person in shock as he opened his mouth and sighed deeply. Rather than believe without embroiling city's mysterious maiden, I'd rather choose to believe you. She has the red clear pavilion behind her. Perhaps the mutation of the dragon egg was caused by her and the people from the red clear pavilion. Behind him, Hall Master Lu couldn't help but mock when he heard the words of the two executive elders. The power of the red clear pavilion is so mysterious. I heard that the pavilion master is one of the strongest experts in the heaven realm. Hall Master Ji coldly said. I heard that even in the heaven realm, it is rare to hear any news about the red clear pavilion. However, the red clear pavilion just had to appear in such a flamboyant manner at the Earth Realm's auction conference. Her gaze looked straight at Yiqing Luo. From what I see, red clear pavilion's people are trying to expand their own ambitions, so they're starting from the Earth domain. The executive elder's expression changed again. But very quickly they still stood firmly behind Yiqing Luo and the others. Executive Elder A. Every realm has its own rules. If the Red Clear Pavilion really wanted to develop their own ambitions, they would definitely not start from the Earth realm. Executive Elder B. If this matter is really related to without embroiling city's mysterious maiden, then your Linglong Palace can't escape from this. If you have the energy to gossip here, you might as well investigate the truth as soon as possible. The two executive elders' words hit the Hall Master's words harshly. They even took the chance to drag the Linglong Palace into this. Chapter 3693. Pfft. A light laugh interrupted the Hall Master's angry bellows. Yiqing Luo's eyes curved into crescents as her eyes were filled with ridicule, which means to say, both Hall Masters actually don't really believe in mysterious fairy. Hall Master Lu's distinct big eyes flashed a chilly glint. Yiqing Luo raised her fair hand and held her lower jaw as she smiled. In a while, you'll say that I've allied with the Underworld Palace to destroy the Earth Realm, to fulfill my ambition. In a while, it'll become me allying with the Red Clear Pavilion. Hehe. Before you start spreading rumors, can't you first check the reason for spreading rumors? Allying with this, allying with that. Her voice paused for a moment. Suddenly she lowered her voice and revealed a trace of treacherous coercion. Aren't you afraid that, with such a plot, not only will you offend the Underworld Palace, you'll also offend the Red Clear Pavilion? Yiqing Luo was saying that, while taking a step forward. That shocked the two Hall Masters so much that their expressions changed as they staggered and retreated a few steps in a disheveled state. Until they almost knocked into someone else. They then stabilized themselves. Yiqing Luo tilted her head as her brows were still filled with smiles. Surely you don't really think that that person in the Red Clear Pavilion is no longer around, right? Looking at Yiqing Luo's eyes, the crafty smile was flickering. The two Hall Masters' hearts suddenly trembled. Their gazes swiftly swept across the surroundings. Deeply afraid that what they said earlier would fall into the ears of the people in the Red Clear Pavilion. The two of them felt guilty and naturally didn't dare to find trouble with Yiqing Luo. Executive Elder A seemed as though he had heard some good news as his eyes lit up. Miss D, that sir in the Red Clear Pavilion, is he really still around? Can we ask that sir to help us resolve this calamity? Executive Elder B asked. The two elders' eyes were filled with hope. Yiqing Luo hadn't said a word. It was Bo Songyi who opened his mouth as he explained on her behalf. The person behind sealed our various powerhouses people in the auction, so they should have long made preparations. I'm afraid that the person behind really wants to make use of this, to take action on the Earth Realm. To dare to use such a method to take action in the Earth Realm, that also means that the person behind isn't afraid of the Balance Historian's arrival. As everyone knew, in order for every realm to develop in a balanced manner, The power suppression between realms was very strict. For example, the white dragon monster ate humans and sealed off the 3 main cities of the land. This had completely violated the balance of the land. The reason why the mastermind isn't afraid of the historian of balance is because he's already prepared for this. Either that or the opponent has nothing to fear. At this point, Bo Songyi raised his head and enunciated each word clearly. If it's the latter, then even the Lord of the Scarlet Clarity Pavilion won't be able to help us. The executive elder's face turned pale. Then what should we do now? If that monster wants to hurt people again, with its current size, we will suffer more and more casualties. Executive Elder A's eyes were filled with anxiety. Bo Songyi took a look at his brothers behind him and looked at Yiqing Luo. Does Miss D have any ideas? Since the other party is hiding things, why don't we take the initiative to attack? And at the same time find out who is the person behind this and what is his motive. Yiqing Luo replied while stroking her chin. If what Vice Leader Bo said is true, if we take the initiative to attack, wouldn't that be? Executive Old B asked worriedly. Chapter 3694. The executive elder was choked by Yiqing Luo's words and couldn't say a word. If everyone is willing to unite, perhaps there will be a chance of survival. Yiqing Luo continued. The executive elder looked at the young lady in front of him. He couldn't describe the feeling in his heart. Obviously, this young lady was not considered as a top figure in this place. Compared to her, there were plenty of people who were stronger. But this young lady had a kind of magical power that made people want to believe in her. Especially when they met with the young lady's deep black eyes without a trace of luster. Their hearts seemed to have been bewitched. Yiqing Luo didn't wait for their reply. Her figure suddenly moved and jumped onto the eaves. Looked like she was getting closer to the white dragon monster in the sky. Ah Luo. Pei Xing called her name worriedly, his brows knitted tightly. Qiao Yinyan's expression was also tense. His eyes looked at her without blinking. Yiqing Luo's actions made quite a number of people cast their gazes over. Coincidentally, the white dragon monster was tumbling in mid-air, circling and roaring. That huge sharp claw just happened to be standing on top of Yiqing Luo's head, looking up at the angle of the eaves. It looked like Yiqing Luo was about to be scratched to death by that white dragon's claw. Everyone's heart was tightly in their throats. They were completely unable to understand the purpose of Yiqing Luo's action. Under the various gazes of the crowd, the young lady stood there calmly. Between her long and narrow charming eyes, there was a trace of faint flowing light. Treacherous and deep, exuding a dangerous aura. Suddenly her eyes flashed. The whole person's aura suddenly became fierce. Her red sleeves danced with her fingertips. Just like from the flame, a section of fair green lotus root was revealed. Slender white fingertips, holding a flame feather fan. She flicked her fingers and the feather fan was like a ball of raging flame. Boom! A strong explosive sound exploded in the air. In a split second the sky seemed to be dyed red. Like blood red, it covered everyone's eyes. What is she trying to do? Does she want to fight with that monster face to face? Is she crazy? If we anger that monster, none of us can escape. All sorts of voices of shock and complaints rose and fell one after another. Everyone was suppressing fear and negative emotions in their hearts. At this moment they could not help but let it out. But, in the next instant, everyone's complaints were stuck in their throats. On the eaves, the young girl dashed towards a certain direction within the blazing red light. Still want to run? The young girl's chilly voice was like pearls and jade falling onto a plate, yet it revealed a sense of alienation and coldness that made others unable to approach her. The girl moved as fast as lightning. It was like a sharp blade. He charged straight in that direction. He stretched out his hand. He grabbed someone's shoulder. That person was obviously still surprised that he had been discovered. With a flip of his hand, he broke free from Yiqing Luo's grip and quickly escaped. The corners of Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards as the glower flame fan in her hand flickered with a seductive red glow. She moved her fingers. The dark force was like a wind blade, wrapped around the man. Seeing that the situation was not good, the man struck out with his palm and quickly moved away. Yiqing Luo flipped a few times in midair and avoided the surging palm wind. Her vision brushed past the executive elder. The moment their eyes met, the executive elder seemed to have understood something. Chapter 3695. Old B was still shouting out his slogan. Everyone, no matter who is responsible for today's matter, our only aim is to leave the auction. To walk out of this sealed space. So what we need to do now is to unite and face the external threat together. After our lives are secured, then we can continue to ferret out the mastermind behind this, to find out who is it. The executive elder's words were subtly informing everyone. Even if they still suspected Yiqing Luo. But at this juncture, everyone could only let go of the grudge in their hearts. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. Many of them were still hesitating on the spot. But some felt that what the executive elder said was very reasonable. Thinking of Yiqing Luo's earlier actions. And that man who was running away. The few of them reacted swiftly and chased up. There were also people who immediately went to stop that man. A group of people joined hands, and in just a moment, they had already intercepted that man. That man's eyes were filled with murderous intent. His face was extremely distorted. His mouth gave out a roar similar to a wild beast. Following that, he bared his fangs and brandished his claws as he attacked the people surrounding him. Everyone felt strange and were about to retaliate. Following that, a red shadow flashed past. The young lady's leg flew up and kicked that man's back fiercely. That man didn't even make a sound. He fell straight onto the ground. Everyone immediately took a few steps back. All of them stared vigilantly at the man who had fallen on the ground. Misty, who is he? Why do you want to capture him? Don't tell me that the monster is caused by this man? Everyone asked in puzzlement. Yiqing Luo patted her sleeves and slowly walked towards that man who was lying on the ground. The surrounding people subconsciously moved to the two sides, opening up a path. Yiqing Luo walked to that man's side and raised her leg, giving that man a kick. That man didn't move an inch. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes slightly and was about to exert force. Suddenly, a ridiculing laughter was heard, deliberately mystifying. Are you trying to find someone to take the blame? That man has already been beaten to death by you, and then with the dead leaving no evidence, you can fabricate anything you want. Xiao Yulu sneered as her red lips curled upwards, proudly crossing her chest. Di Luo, what are you still trying to struggle for? Yiqing Luo glanced at her faintly, and following that she exerted strength with her feet, flipping the unmoving person over. She said calmly, take a good look at who he is. Everyone was curious, so they squeezed forward to take a look. When he saw the face clearly, everyone's expression changed drastically. Auctioneer. How could it be him? Why did he? Could it be that all of this was caused by the auctioneer? When the crowd saw that familiar face, all sorts of guesses started popping up in their hearts. Yes. Don't forget, when it came to the last item, the auctioneer's behavior was obviously different from before. He kept persuading us to raise the price and bid for the dragon egg. In the end, it was still him who wanted us to observe the dragon egg up close. It was because we got close to the dragon egg that it broke and released that monster. Right. Did you notice another detail? After the dragon egg hatched, he ran faster than anyone else. It's obvious that it's not a dragon inside the egg but a monster. One of them said. 10,000 people agreed. The crowd instantly felt their hearts palpitating. The more they thought about it, the more terrified they felt. No matter who the person behind the dragon egg was. Chapter 3696. Who knows? Could it be that she saw that the matter was exposed and used her accomplice, the auctioneer, to take the blame? Xiao Yulu snorted coldly. In any case, the dead cannot testify. This empress doesn't believe you. Yiqing Luo chuckled and shot a glance at her disapprovingly. I don't need your trust. Then he paused. Yiqing Luo burst out laughing again as her long and narrow eyes curved, filled with ridicule and ridicule. You'd better think carefully on how to gain that bunch of people's trust. Don't forget that time in West Cliff Mountain, that bunch of people totally didn't consider your life. This time around, are you sure that those people will consider letting you leave the auction hall alive? Will the monster in the sky really not attack you? Yiqing Luo's every question was emphasized. Like a hammer, it hit Xiao Yulu's heart heavily. Xiao Yulu subconsciously thought of the soul-devouring formation in the West Cliff Mountain. The pain of being devoured by those evil spirits. There was also the pain of being disfigured. Her delicate body trembled uncontrollably. There was also a trace of fear on his face. She shook her head, her eyes were slightly red as she stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo. I don't know what you're talking about. Yiqing Luo smiled without saying a word. Bo Songyi and the others also gathered around her. Miss D, the auctioneer is dead. I'm afraid that the clue has been broken. What should we do next? Don't tell me, we have to start with that monster. Qiao Yinyan looked up at the white dragon with a solemn expression. Yiqing Luo laughed lightly, since the other party had long used the auction as bait, intending to wipe out all the powerhouses in the Earth domain in one fell swoop. Naturally, they have made full preparations. The girl's smile made everyone stunned for a moment. You mean? Qiao Yinyan lowered his gaze and looked at the person lying on the ground. Yiqing Luo's brows rose tightly as she slowly lowered her eyes. She curled her lips into a seductive smile. Then he bent down. The foot that was stepping on the auctioneer's chest increased in strength as he bent over. The auctioneer who was lying on the ground looked dead. There was no reaction from Yiqing Luo's increased strength. The crowd around them whispered to each other. It was obvious that he didn't trust Yiqing Luo. After Yiqing Luo bent over, she maintained this position. She smiled wickedly like a female playboy. If you plan to let me slaughter you, I don't mind turning you into a dismembered corpse. Her voice was clear and sweet and her tone was calm. It didn't sound like he was saying anything dangerous at all. A complete corpse or a corpse that's turned into minced meat? Which do you prefer? Her voice was loud. The people around him couldn't help but rub their arms. This girl, she looked young, gentle and charming. How could they be so bloody and cruel? Not even sparing the corpses? This was the rhythm of whipping a corpse. Everyone's gaze towards Yiqing Luo had some subtle changes. Everyone was pointing at him. Yiqing Luo totally didn't put it to heart. She just quietly looked at the auctioneer beneath her feet as she said word by word, "Don't doubt my ability. Even that monster, I can injure it till it's unable to regenerate itself. Do you think this not considered a successful experiment? Can regenerate itself in my hands?" She laughed lightly. His laughter carried a treacherous coldness that caused one to be terrified. For words were spat out silently from her lips. Chapter 3697. He's already dead and you're still putting on an act. Who are you trying to show? The more you act, the more fake you look. I think Princess Yu Lu is right. You were the mastermind behind all of this. Di Luo. What motive do you have? Trapping us in the auction. Don't tell me you really want to join forces with other forces to control the Earth domain. Seeing Yiqing Luo still talking to a corpse, everyone felt that it was ridiculous. That auctioneer was obviously kicked to death by Yiqing Luo earlier. Even now he was still putting on an act and chatting with a corpse. Did she treat them as fools? The more Yiqing Luo acted in this way, on the contrary, they started to suspect Yiqing Luo even more. That white dragon monster is definitely created by her. Let's catch her first. Then we'll force her to tell us the way to leave the auction. That's right. Catch her first. We can't let her escape. The crowd swarmed forward, intending to catch Yiqing Luo. At the same time, the crowd suddenly felt a burst of dense and overbearing profound energy suddenly spreading in the air. The vast aura made the entire space felt oppressive. Following that, everyone was shocked by that powerful aura as they retreated a few steps. Swoosh, a slight sound was heard. The crowd saw the auctioneer who was originally lying on the ground like a corpse, actually stood up straight. And this vigorous energy was being emitted from his body. Everyone's heart trembled in shock. What was going on? Why, the dead auctioneer suddenly came back to life? And that energy which had far exceeded their imagination, where did it come from? They had participated in the auction for so many years. This was the first time they found out that the auctioneer who had been hosting the auction for them had such a powerful ability. This profound energy was overbearing and terrifying. It was emitted in the air. Unknowingly, it gave one an extremely oppressive feeling. How did you discover me? The auctioneer's eyes were gloomy, totally different from his amiable expression during the auction. His sentence was obviously directed at Yiqing Luo. The crowd heard the murderous tone. Their hearts couldn't help but clench together. It made one's heart feel an indescribable oppressive feeling. However, what surprised everyone was, facing the auctioneer, the young lady's expression didn't change in the slightest. It was as if he was not affected by the auctioneer at all. Between his brows, his emotions were extremely faint. Yiqing Luo met the auctioneer's gaze and the pink lips under the veil curled into a slight arc. Ever since I saw that monster, I've already guessed it. She paused for a moment and then waved the devouring flame fan at the tip of her finger. I didn't expect that my guess would actually be correct. The auctioneer's gaze was fixed on the fan in Yiqing Luo's hands as his brows sunk. It's that weapon. Yiqing Luo waved her glower flame fan. That's right, inside. There's my secret weapon. Although it might not be able to kill you, at the very least, it will prevent you from automatically recovering. The glowing fan had been refined by Tang Beiyuan and had devoured Yoin's mental power. Right now, the glowing flame fan was the best weapon to deal with the undead puppets. However, this corpse puppet from the land, it was the auctioneer in front of him. Although it was not a finished product, but he was very strong. Her mental strength was also a little taxing on her. The glowing flame fan was unable to deal too much damage to the auctioneer. Chapter 3698. Also, all of you will become food for my war pet White Fang. The auctioneer opened his arms and spoke in a dignified manner. The corners of his mouth curled up into an evil smile. His figure suddenly moved. In the next instant he appeared in midair. And the white dragon monster that was originally hovering in the sky and roaring from time to time. Its huge body moved downwards. Then he took the auctioneer's hands steadily. This scene caused everyone to be dumbfounded. That monster. It was actually the auctioneer's war pet. That was a man-eating monster. Everyone looked at the powerful and completely different auctioneer and suddenly said, You are not from the Earth realm. What do you want to do? Such a powerful aura. And he could subdue that invulnerable monster. This was definitely not a strength that a person from the Earth realm could have. Facing everyone's shocked expression, the auctioneer obviously enjoyed it. He sat on the head of the white dragon monster and smiled proudly and arrogantly. I used to be from the Earth realm, but now I am not. He chuckled. The black gas in his eyes was like a surging ink spring surging. Listening to the auctioneer's answer, the fear in everyone's heart increased. Not from the Earth realm now? In other words, the auctioneer had ascended? Now he had become a person from the heaven realm. So, what happened today was done by the people from the heaven realm. Someone from the heaven realm was ambitious. They wanted to change the dynasty of the Earth realm. This thought flashed across everyone's mind. It made everyone's face turn pale. You bunch of stupid people. No one can escape. The auctioneer laughed wildly. Suddenly he stretched out his finger and said proudly, White Fang, go. Devour the souls of these people, devour their Xianxia and turn their power into our power. Roar. The dragon's roar was deafening. The white dragon's body, which was hovering in mid-air, shook violently. It was as if the world had been turned upside down by the white dragon monster. Everyone's face became more and more pale. That monster. The monster is going to attack people again. Quick. Run. That monster hasn't moved, so it's waiting for its master. He had seen how terrifying the white dragon monster was. The crowd watched as the white dragon bent down and shook its body. They were so terrified that they almost collapsed to the ground. The white dragon roared, opened its bloody mouth and rushed towards the people below. It was huge. This mouth could swallow at least 10 people into its stomach. Everyone was horrified. Run. Don't let that monster touch you. Once bitten by a monster. That was the consequence of dying without a complete corpse. You can't escape. None of you will be able to escape. The auctioneer was delighted to see the crazed crowd. He loved to watch his prey flee frantically. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't escape from the palm of his hand. This feeling was refreshing. The white dragon swooped down. His entire body exuded a murderous aura as well as a bloody and savage aura. Everyone felt fear from the bottom of their hearts. The white dragon monster was impervious to weapons, water, and fire. They could not fight back against the white dragon. He wanted to escape. However, he was not as fast as the monster. They were like lambs waiting to be slaughtered. It was just a matter of who killed first or later. Everyone panicked in their hearts and fell into despair and chaos. Suddenly, a hurricane swept past. Chapter 3699. The alluring red glow seemed as though it could dye the entire heaven and earth. A puppet without any spiritual intelligence, what's there to be afraid of? Following that, a young lady's clear and melodious voice rang. And it was at this critical moment. A red figure charged straight towards that white dragon monster. This scene shocked everyone so much that they drew in a cold breath. They couldn't believe what they saw in front of them. Not afraid? That wasn't an ordinary monster? How could they not be afraid? If they were bitten, there was no possibility of survival at all. Looking at the scene of Yiqing Luo colliding with that monster, everyone's anxious hearts were all tightened into a ball. Isn't it just a dragon? An imitation, and you dare to call it a dragon? The young lady scoffed lightly as her tone was filled with disdain. When the crowd heard this, they were really shocked into a daze. They couldn't believe what their ears had heard. They even wondered if they had heard wrongly. Earlier, the meaning of the young lady's words was, he also had a dragon, and it was a real dragon. Whereas the auctioneer who was sitting on the white dragon monster's back revealed a sinister cold smile. Young lady, don't joke around. Just based on you also have a dragon? A real dragon? He laughed loudly. This dragon of mine is not some imitation but a real dragon. Yiqing Luo flipped her leg and her slender hand flipped. The glower flame fan on her fingertips was like a spark, flipping in her palm. Profound energy condensed, thousands of feet of wind waves surged. Against that white dragon monster, two bursts of energy collided directly. One after another, the sharp piercing dragon's roar reverberated through the earth. The young lady's expression didn't change at all. Profound energy surged. Heaven and earth rotated. The young lady's brows were like a blooming flower that led to the netherworld, bewitching, bloodthirsty, and alluring. Her lips curled upwards as her palm moved and a clear voice spilled out from her mouth. Azure Dragon. Her voice had just landed. In a split second, the surroundings were covered with a layer of black fog. Lightning flashed and thunder roared. In the thick black fog there seemed to be something breaking out from the ground. The surrounding air seemed to have condensed into frost. Soon after, as the sky surged, everyone saw a ray of green light. It was like a ray of light that flashed across the darkness. Bit by bit he pulled out a thin seam. Then bit by bit they decorated the entire sky. Soon after, the black mist slowly dispersed to both sides. A sonorous dragon roar like a shocking momentum broke through the sky. The moment the dragon's roar rang out, the entire world seemed to have quietened down. All that was left was this extremely long dragon roar. His aura swallowed mountains and rivers, intimidating all directions. That was the moment the dragon roar stopped. From all directions, a series of beastly roars rang out in unison, echoing continuously. That was the sound of 10,000 beasts submitting to him. This movement. The auctioneer's eyes narrowed a little. The expression on his face darkened. Those people who were frozen on the spot and scared out of their wits felt like their hearts were about to jump out of their mouths. The orderly roars of the beasts seemed to be echoing in his ears again and again. The dragon race had appeared. All beasts submit. This was the true description of the dragon race. Roar, roar, roar. The dragon's roars were louder and louder as it kept surging in the sky. A powerful and vast energy spread out in the surroundings. Following that, the sky was filled with thick black fog. Chapter 3700. The huge green dragon descended from the sky with the momentum of 1,000 catties. The green dragon's scales seemed to be adorned with sparkling jewels, sparkling under the thick black fog. The surroundings were filled with gales, howling incessantly. Under the raging waves, the red-robed young lady stepped on the waves as she walked towards the place where the green dragon was hovering. All the surrounding black fog followed the young lady's approach, and directly lined up on both sides. After stepping on the wind and waves, the young lady leapt up and flipped onto the back of the green dragon. She stood on the dragon's head. Her slender figure danced with the wind, making a fluttering sound. The moment the green dragon appeared, it suppressed the tense atmosphere of the entire chaotic auction. The green dragon hovered on the spot, its tail dragging on the ground, coiling several rounds. It proudly raised its dragon head. The dragon's whiskers fluttered along with the dragon's breath. A pair of green dragon eyes, emitting the majesty of the dragon clan. The moment the green dragon appeared, the auctioneer almost fell off White-Tooth's back. Not only because of its fear, but also because the moment the azure dragon appeared, White Fang lowered his head and curled up into a ball. It didn't even have the courage to raise its head to look at the green dragon. The dragon clan showed its might. All the beasts in the world had to be obedient. This scene made the auctioneer's face gloomy. This caused the surrounding people to be both delighted and shocked. After this green dragon appeared, they then understood what a dragon was. This was a dragon. A real dragon. That white dragon monster was simply a monster. Even that monster had submitted to the majesty of a true dragon. With the existence of a dragon, what were they afraid of? Everyone's gazes were burning as they stared at the green dragon. Looking at that sparkling green scales, overflowing with brilliant colors. Looking at that huge dragon's body coiling round and round. Looking at the young lady standing on top of the dragon's head. Indescribably domineering. Indescribably awe-inspiring. This scene could be said. The next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. They would never be able to forget this scene in front of them. How is this possible? The auctioneer was also shocked. In the air, strong fluctuations kept pressing against him. He almost fell off from White Tooth's body. Yiqing Luo stood on top of the dragon's head. The dragon's body swayed. The air and the space swirled violently as it swayed. The power that represented the Azure Dragon was unleashed. After the fake dragon appeared, the Dragon King's eyes widened. In the pet space, the Azure Dragon was so excited that it wanted to rush out and slap him in the face. Could be said that a corpse puppet like White Fang was an insult to the dignity of a dragon. He was right. White Fang was just a corpse puppet. White Fang was not a dragon at all. Instead, it was a flood dragon. Don't underestimate the difference between a flood dragon and a dragon. However, there was a world of difference between the two. Dragons are gods. Especially as a holy beast. They were gods who lived in the heavens. As for the flood dragon, it belonged to the category of flood dragons that lived in the water, resembling snakes yet not snakes, resembling dragons yet not dragons. Before the tribulation. A flood dragon that didn't even have a dragon horn. White Fang was the flood dragon before the tribulation. For some unknown reason. He was turned into a corpse puppet and was sent to the side of the auctioneer. Oh no, White Fang wasn't the auctioneer's battle pet. It was just that the mastermind had temporarily lent White Fang to the auctioneer. A flood dragon actually pretended to be a dragon. It even used the name of a dragon to do evil. As the ancestor of dragons, how could the Azure Dragon tolerate it?
Chapter 1233. Qing Su had a dazed look on his face as if he had fallen into a memory. This made Yihua a bit awkward. I asked you to make a move and this is your expression? However, Dong Huangfei seemed to be shocked. I know that these people aren't easy to deal with, but I can't let anything happen to them in my territory. Actually, this is just a legend. As for the truth, I'm not very clear about it either. Dong Huangfei was a bit scared. His intuition told him that only by being scared would he be safe. This was similar to Dong Huang Qingru. If they were to cower, they would be able to see the world. Speak. Yihua was very curious about what exactly was going on. Dong Huang Baiji also wanted to know. No matter if it was a legend or not, she still wanted to know. Dong Huangfei let out a light sigh. Since you all want to know, I will speak about it. However, I still hope that you all don't implicate me. I naturally won't implicate you. Yihua said indifferently. As for what other people were thinking, he didn't know. Dong Huangfei was thinking in his heart, I don't believe you all look like the type that doesn't keep your promises. This matter has to start from a very long time ago. At that time I was still the head guard of the rear courtyard. Dong Huangfei said solemnly. Yihua nodded his head, the rear courtyard is not bad, it is much more interesting than the front courtyard. Dong Huangfei said seriously, indeed the rear courtyard is more important. Let's get to the main point, stop talking about the front courtyard and the rear courtyard. Yihua said in a low voice. Isn't this what you were talking about? Dong Huang Baiji couldn't take it anymore. Can you all stop talking about the front courtyard and the rear courtyard? Yihua leaned on the chair, took out a cigarette and lit it up. Dong Huangfei could feel that Dong Huang Baiji's aura was indeed very pure. Miss Baiji, please calm down. Dong Huangfei had to calm down Dong Huang Baiji. If someone were to discover this aura, they would be in big trouble. TMD, are you going to speak or not? Yihua couldn't take it anymore. Just what is going on? You've been talking nonsense for half a day. Speak, be quiet for a bit, let me recall properly. Can you all not be so noisy? At this moment, Qing Su couldn't take it anymore and said. It must be said that everyone present was very annoyed. Yihua, who was annoyed, his gaze turned cold. Qing Su. The latter pursed his lips and did not say anything. From the looks of it, the current Yihua is able to intimidate Qing Su. At the very least, Qing Su won't talk back. From the looks of it, in Qing Su's subconsciousness, Qing Su has begun to acknowledge Yi Hua's memories. Dong Huang Fei pursed his lips. I have no choice but to say it. I advise you to speak the truth, if not. Yi Hua gave a stern warning. Dong Huang Fei was furious. How many years have I been a floor manager? He was actually being threatened today. Moreover, I was threatened in my own territory. If it wasn't for that woman, I wouldn't have such a bad temper. This matter has to start from a very long time ago. At that time, I was still the head of the rear courtyard guards. Yi Hua couldn't help but say, You have already said this sentence just now. Yi Hua, can you not interrupt others? Yi Hua, yeah, don't interrupt me and mess up my memory. All right, continue speaking. Yi Hua said gravely. Yi Hua's mood was a bit bad. However, Dong Huang Fei continued speaking. This matter has to start from a very long time ago. At that time, I was still the head of the rear courtyard guards. In the entire Dong Huang family, there were two outstanding people. These two people were the legitimate descendants of the family, and the position of the family head would definitely be given to one of them. Hearing till here, Yi Hua understood that the plot of the story should be that the two people were fighting for the position of the family head, and then one of them was framed. And that framed person should be on Dong Huang Baiji's side. Dong Huang Baiji seemed to be thinking the same thing as well. Qing Su, who had a dull look on his face, seemed to have started listening to the story as well. Even Dong Huang Qingru, who was standing outside, was eavesdropping on the story. These two people, one of them is called Dong Huang Shini, and the other one is the current family head, Dong Huang Jishang. Yi Hua looked towards Dong Huang Baiji, indicating that she should be related to that Dong Huang Shini. Perhaps she might be his descendant, but as for how many generations, Yi Hua wasn't sure. Back then, when the two of them fought for the position of the family master, it caused a huge commotion. In the end, Dong Huang Jishang obtained the position of the family master, and Dong Huang Shen-Yi went missing. That's all. After Dong Huang Fei finished speaking, he heaved a sigh of relief. That's all? Yi Hua asked in confusion. That's all. Dong Huang Fei said seriously. *CKME. Qing Su, get him. All right. Qing Su also couldn't help but want to do it. He was simply whetting his appetite and didn't say a single word about the main point. Wait. Dong Huang Fei said hurriedly. This damned fatty looks just like an ordinary person, but I have a feeling that this fellow's gaze. No, I can't see his eyes at all, but I keep on feeling that this fellow is very evil. But what exactly happened in between? Qing Su angrily asked. He hated it when people didn't finish their sentences. Dong Huang Fei tightly furrowed his brows. This fat brother, you really can't say this. This is a scandal. I will die if I say it out loud. You're not telling me? I'm going to die now. Qing Su was not afraid at all. Yi Hua nodded his head. Indeed, if you don't tell me, you are going to die now. Dong Huang Fei felt that there were two gods sitting in front of him. Although the fatty looked just like an ordinary person, the imposing manner he gave off was simply even more ferocious than the family head. This imposing manner couldn't be faked. Without accumulating it for a long time, it was impossible to achieve it. That's right. Dong Huang Baiji added. Yi Hua rubbed onto Dong Huang Baiji's head. That's right. Dong Huang Fei was very helpless as he said in a low voice, Don't tell anyone, I am the one who told you all about this. You all are using your lives to threaten me. Yi Hua has never seen such a cowardly person before. Aren't you known as the floor manager? Are you all this cowardly? First of all, I have to declare my position. Whether or not this matter is true or false, you all can only use it as a reference. Dong Huang Fei paused for a moment, then continued, I only heard that the current family head cuckolded Dong Huang Shini. Yi Hua, Dong Huang Baiji, Qing Su. This gossip is too fierce. Cuckolding someone, this is simply the most ferocious revenge. You all don't have to look at me like this, there is no evidence for this. Dong Huang Fei hurriedly added. Yi Hua asked curiously, Are the two of them blood-related brothers? Dong Huang Fei nodded his head. That's right, the current family head is the younger brother. Awesome. The younger brother cuckolded the older brother, and the older brother disappeared in the end. Then Dong Huang Baiji. Yi Hua looked at Dong Huang Baiji blankly. Could it be? Dong Huang Baiji was also a bit stupefied right now. If this is really the case, then I am the descendant of the current family head? Dong Huang Baiji was a bit unable to accept this. I want to be alone. After finished speaking, Dong Huang Baiji walked out of the hall. End of this chapter. Chapter 1234. Dong Huang Qingru, who was standing outside, was also stupefied. The current family head, Donghuang Jiesheng cuckolded his own brother. If this matter were to be known by the people of the 9 provinces and 5 seas, the Donghuang family would become a laughing stock. No wonder the level manager is so cautious, something big is going to happen. Yihua didn't chase after them. Right now, Donghuang Baiji indeed needs to calm down. I came here to cause trouble and act cool, but in the end, it became a family search. Then what should Donghuang Baiji call the current family head? According to what Donghuang Baiji said, his father had already passed away, perhaps he should be called Grandpa. Fortunately, it's not his father, that would be so awkward. Yihua didn't know how to comfort his wife right now. If I knew that there would be such a trap, I should have come here first to check things out. How can the Empress accept this? If it was me, I would also be at a loss. Speaking of which, I have never seen the Empress's father before. According to Donghuang Baiji, the Empress's father seemed to have died from anger? How tough is the life of the Donghuang family? How can they die from anger? There seems to be something fishy about this. Not right. This doesn't feel right. Perhaps this family head is Donghuang Baiji's father. If I were to deal with this matter, I would definitely hand my daughter over to the person I trust the most to prevent her from being implicated. This makes sense. My deduction is very likely to be true. If that's the case, that Marquis should be the person who is secretly helping the Empress, hiding Donghuang Baiji on Earth to prevent her from being discovered. I'm truly a genius. Actually, I haven't finished speaking. Donghuang Fei said embarrassedly. Yihua and Qingsu went into a daze. Donghuang Fei could be heard continuing. According to the rumors, Donghuang Shini was cuckolded first, that's why the current family head took revenge. Yihua, Qingsu, Dou Fusher who was at the side didn't even hear what Donghuang Fei said. As for Wan, she was already shocked. I didn't expect that there would be such a scandal within a big family. If this kind of news were to be leaked out, the Donghuang family's reputation would definitely be gone. It would only become a joke after a meal. When Yihua heard what Donghuang Baiji said, he immediately overturned his previous conjecture. Just whose descendant is Donghuang Baiji? This will forever be a mystery. Fortunately, Donghuang Baiji walked out of the room. If she had heard what Yihua said just now, she would have definitely fainted. Now there was only Bodhisattva's blessing. This was not at the level of a father. Otherwise it would be really awkward. Are there any more? Yihua asked curiously. This Donghuang family is too chaotic. I hope that this rumor is false. There is one more thing. Donghuang Fei said solemnly. What is it? Qingsu asked immediately. Yihua glared at him fiercely. As a subordinate you shouldn't talk too much. Qingsu pursed his lips and remained silent. What is it? Donghuang Fei looked at the surroundings and said in a low voice, at that time, none of them had a wife or fiancé. Right now Yihua was a bit confused. It was the same for Qingsu. Damn, is it asexual reproduction? With just a single sentence, this fellow had completely overturned all of Yihua's previous plans. Right now, Yihua was completely unable to understand what was going on. However, this aroused Yihua's desire to know the inside story even more. Where's the family head? I'll go and pout my lips. Qingsu said solemnly. He had to know the inside story. Yihua did not say anything. I indeed need to know the inside story, my woman. Which side were they on? Don't get too excited. Recently, the Eastern Emperor clan is organizing a youth competition. If you guys were to directly cause trouble, the consequences would be dire. Have you heard of the Immortal Shrine? Donghuang Fei said solemnly. Yihua went into a daze, then looked towards Wan. Wan felt guilty. Qingsu also knew that this indestructible shrine was really that strong? Even the Donghuang clan was afraid of him? I have heard of it, what about it? Yihua asked curiously. Donghuang Fei said solemnly, this palace master has been suppressed by the patriarchs of several big clans, that's why he has been peaceful for thousands of years. Recently, this group of people has been acting strangely again, I'm afraid they are trying to cause trouble. So? Yihua asked. That's why we can't complicate the issue now. The hall master is afraid that if the ceiling formation disappears, it will bring about destruction. That's why he wants you guys to calm down and have a good chat. Misunderstandings can be resolved. There's no need to fight and kill each other. This palace master is so powerful? Yihua was a bit curious. Right now, I am lacking a strong opponent. That palace master is able to make Wei Chang betray his faction. That palace master definitely has a very terrifying strength. I really want to have a look at him. That's not right. Wasn't it said that the hall master was sealing it? He is indeed very powerful, he has countless experts under him. Yihua asked, Did you just say that the hall master is within the seal? That's right, all of the family patriarchs will work together to reinforce the seal every month. If not, the seal will be broken. The seal is filled with the aura of all of the family patriarchs. If something were to happen to the family patriarch, the consequences, I dare not imagine. Yihua took a look at Qing Su, and Qing Su gave Yihua a look of wanting to cause trouble. As expected of my subordinate, you never forget to cause trouble. I can let this evil out to play with. I want to let Wei Chang see how trash the master that you chose is. When the time comes, you will kneel in front of me and repent, and I won't forgive you. What do you mean by the youngster assembly that you mentioned just now? Yihua asked. Oh, it means that the most outstanding disciple will be chosen from among the disciples to be groomed. Dong Huangji will be attending as well? Yihua asked curiously. Of course, the number one disciple will be groomed personally by the family patriarch. Yihua nodded his head, then looked at Dong Huangbaji's back view and asked, Can you give me an identity? You are thinking? Dong Huangfei seemed to be able to sense what Yihua wanted to do. I'm just thinking. Dong Huangfei pondered for a moment, then nodded his head. Forget it, in any case I will be killed by you all. I will guarantee that you won't die. Yihua said faintly. If I want someone to die, that person will definitely die. But if I want someone to live, even if all 4 of his limbs are broken, that person will still be able to live. Really? Of course. Then let me tell you another secret. F*CK. I suddenly don't want to protect him anymore. This is simply not trustworthy. What secret? Dong Huangfei said in a low voice. The family patriarch has an uncle. The corner of Yihua and Qing Su's mouth twitched slightly. Could it be that this uncle cuckolded us brothers? F*CK. How can these people be so perverted? It's not what you all think. The family patriarch's uncle is called Dong Huangxi. He is the one with the highest seniority in the entire Dong Huang family, and his strength is also the strongest. You all have to be careful. I feel that Dong Huangxi is not a good person. Dong Huangfei warned. Yihua felt that he had gained a lot from this trip. Now it is time for me to display my strength. Let everyone fear the power of the deity. Tremble in fear. End of chapter. Chapter 1235. Is this Dong Huangji preparing to usurp the position of the family master? Yihua asked curiously. Dong Huangfei shook his head. You are wrong. Dong Huangji loves the East Emperor a lot. He should be doting on the East Emperor. Yihua couldn't help but start imagining the scene of an old man doting on another old man. That scene is so unbearable. I don't want to see that scene. So this Dong Huangji is East Emperor Ji's backing? Yihua asked. Dong Huangfei shook his head. You are wrong. On the contrary, the family master doesn't really care about his uncle. There is such a thing? Yihua was curious. This uncle dotes on his nephew, and the nephew doesn't care about his uncle. This is so weird. This big family is very messy. As subordinates, we can't be too gossipy, right? Yihua seemed to be able to understand. Those subordinates of mine aren't the 8 trigram supreme overlord. They will instantly know everything that happens. They even know that I am quarreling with my wife. How can you believe that? Can you arrange it? Yihua asked faintly. Yes, then can you all be my subordinates? After all, you all understand. Yihua nodded his head. I shall be the Empress's subordinate for the time being. I shall go and take a look at this youngster's assembly, then I shall explore this Dong Huang family. Alright, I will go and arrange it then. You all can rest here tonight. I will bring you all to the Orange Building tomorrow morning. Yihua let out a breath, then stood up and walked towards Dong Huangbaiji. My Empress is a little. I don't even know what to say. This relationship is too complicated. Yihua didn't say anything, and he immediately hugged onto the Empress. What's wrong? Are you still imagining things? Yihua asked lightly. His tone was very gentle. Dong Huangbaiji seemed very heavy. Yihua, do you think that I am a product of power struggles? No, you are a product of me. Dong Huangbaiji, Yihua, is this how you comfort people? Dong Huangbaiji said angrily. Baiji, your starting point is wrong. You are an independent person no matter where you come from. Look at Lai Gu and the others. Is their birth very glorious? That's obviously not the case, but it can't stop us from living a happy life, so what you're thinking now is unnecessary. Dong Huangbaiji felt that Yihua's words were somewhat reasonable, but she felt that it was a bit crooked. Then, if I was really an illegitimate daughter, would you despise me? Dong Huangbaiji turned around and looked towards Yihua, feeling extremely wronged. Yihua let out a light sigh. From the moment I tricked you onto my bed, I no longer despise you. Dong Huangbaiji, can't you just comfort me? Hateful, Dong Huangbaiji said petulantly. Let's just forget about it. It would already be good if I don't anger myself to death. He was so angry that he wanted to laugh. Look, you're smiling. I don't want to talk to you for even a minute. Dong Huang Baiji snorted, then walked to the flowers and plants at the side, and her expression became serious once again. Yi Hua said helplessly. When he turned his head around and took a look at Qing Su, he discovered that Qing Su had become much more docile. This can be considered as a good thing. Now that he had solved Baiji's problem and lured Wei Chang's master out, everything would be fine. Orange Tower. This was the highest sacred palace in the Donghuang family, and it was a place that all of the disciples wanted to go to. However, it wasn't that easy to enter the Orange Tower. One had to go through layers upon layers of selections to enter the Orange Tower. However, the disciples that were able to enter the Orange Tower all held important positions, and they had to dedicate their entire lives to the Donghuang family. Sounds like they were brainwashed. Alright, in actuality they were brainwashed. The higher the position, the more serious the brainwashing would be. Just look at Donghuang Fei and Donghuang Qingru, they were brainwashed without any need to be brainwashed. They would gossip and even directly admit defeat, not even wanting to fight. At least they had some self-awareness. The Orange Tower was the tallest tower, and one would be able to see the outer space from here. The night was truly very beautiful. In actuality, the Orange Tower was the tallest tower that the family had lived in. One would be able to have a panoramic view of the entire Donghuang family, as well as the mysterious and vast universe. Being a family head truly feels great. On the top floor of the tall tower, there was a round table, and two figures were currently sitting cross-legged across a small table. In a blink of an eye, one of them was Donghuang Jishang, and the other was Jiang Wuyu, the family head of the Jiang family. I say, Jishang, I'm going back. Why are you still holding me back? Jiang Wuyu drank the wine, and he had no intention of leaving at all. This was simply taking advantage of him, and yet he was still pretending to be obedient. Donghuang Jishang sipped the wine, frowning as he looked at the stars. What? I heard some news just now and I suddenly stopped talking. Jiang Wuyu asked curiously. Just now, a man in black suddenly appeared and whispered a few words into Donghuang Jishang's ear. Jiang Wuyu didn't want to eavesdrop, after all, it was a matter of another family. Donghuang Jishang laughed, and he seemed very helpless and a little bitter. This news caught me off guard, Donghuang Jishang said in a low voice. Do you want me to give you some advice? It's useless. Advice won't work, Donghuang Jishang said in a low voice, and he seemed very strange. This made Jiang Wuyu even more curious. Hence, Jiang Wuyu joked, could it be that your illegitimate daughter came to look for you? Donghuang Jishang was stunned, and then he said, I have no children in my life, so how can I have an illegitimate daughter? You are thinking too much. Then why are you so worried? This has something to do with my big brother. Jiang Wuyu became solemn, and he asked in a low voice, what does it have to do with your big brother? Back then, I fought with my big brother for the position of the clan leader. You should know about this, right? Yes, legend has it that you made your big brother a cuckold. Is this true? It seemed that no matter how strong one was, one's heart for gossip would always be there. Donghuang Jishang looked at Jiang Wuyu from the corner of his eyes. You also know that it is a legend. Can you still believe it? Then what exactly happened? Why did your big brother go missing? Jiang Wuyu was already in suspense. This matter was one of the highest secrets of the 9 provinces and 5 seas. Donghuang Jishang said indifferently, dead. I knew it. You must have killed him. Then you took his sister-in-law for yourself. You are a pervert. Can't we talk properly? I'm just joking, don't be so nervous, Jiang Wuyu said as he took a sip of wine. As for how he died, I can't tell you. This is an important matter that involves the clan, Donghuang Jishang said solemnly. Jiang Wuyu could understand. Actually, your big brother, Donghuang Shini, was a genius. Unfortunately, he was killed by you. The struggle for the position of clan leader is really terrifying. Jiang Wuyu sighed. It was the same for his side. The position of clan leader was a position that was stained with blood. End of this chapter. Chapter 1236. Donghuang Jishang sighed. That's right. Big brother's wisdom and knowledge are better than mine, what a pity? Jiang Wuyu was startled. You seem to have understood. Your big brother. Change. Am I right? Jiang Wuyu asked. Donghuang Jishang stopped talking. Jiang Wuyu said, seems like your big brother. He was absorbed by imperishable shrines people and then you guys killed him, am I right? Whatever you think, Donghuang Jishang said indifferently. The more he explained, the more complicated it would be. Jiang Wuyu did not dwell on this question. What else could he do? But Jishang, the seal has been a bit strange recently. Seems like there is an expert helping you, Jiang Wuyu said solemnly. Dong Huang Jishang nodded. I called you here today to discuss something. Then why did you only call me? To be on good terms with you. The other two are very arrogant. Actually, I am also very arrogant, Jiang Wuyu added. Dong Huang Jishang smiled. If you were to be seen like this, your reputation would be lost. Reputation is fleeting to me. I've already thought it through. If not for this seal, I would not be bothered to be the family master. Act. Can you act more like it? Hee, you can see through me. Let's talk about proper business. How are we going to deal with this seal? Strengthen it? Jiang Wuyu said seriously. He was worried about the seal. We can only strengthen it. There is no other way. But we still need a backup plan. Once the seal is broken, we need a way to deal with it. Although I don't like those two old men, I think we still need to gather them and discuss how to deal with it. Dong Huang Jishang said. One person's strength was not enough. That palace master was very strong. This is the only way. Wait for me to deal with this matter. What is it? You will know tomorrow, Dong Huang Jishang said. Dong Huang Jishang obviously knew about Dong Huang Baiji's arrival. Everything that happened in the Dong Huang family had spies. How could Dong Huang Baiji's appearance be hidden? Still keeping me in suspense? Alright then, I'll stay and see what's going on. It's a little troublesome. I don't know where that uncle of mine found a servant recently. This person's qi is very heavy, and just looking at him makes me feel uncomfortable. Dong Huang Jishang was a little annoyed. Jiang Wuyu warned, I think that uncle of yours is quite dangerous. You have to be careful or else he might kill you. I know I will. Dong Huang Jishang said gravely. He did not have any good impression of his uncle at all. He even felt that his uncle was a smiling tiger. On the surface he seemed to support him a lot, but in reality, she just wanted him to be a puppet, just like the time when she congratulated ascended goddess Meng Yao. She didn't even tell him anything and just sent an eccentric person to deliver the congratulatory gift. She didn't even put him in her eyes. However, given their seniority, he could not be too calculative about it. Otherwise, others might say that there was something wrong with him as the clan head. The two continued to sit on the top floor, drinking the fragrant wine, and not saying a word. However, Yihua was currently chatting with Qing Su. However, Yihua wasn't drinking any wine nor was he drinking any water. Yihua was currently smoking. Even Qing Su loved to smoke, and he was immediately led astray by Yihua. Did you gain any enlightenment during these few days? Yihua breathed out a mouthful of green smoke. The green smoke dispersed in the air, and it gave off a rather beautiful feeling. Qing Su's hand gesture of holding the cigarette was a little rusty, and it could be seen that he was a newbie. Even the way he looked when he was smoking was very awkward, and Yihua wanted to extinguish his cigarette. This is simply wasting my food. I have to ask Xianxia to bring back a few boxes of food for me. However, I don't expect Xianxia to bring back a box of food for me. Qing Su spread out the cigarette ash and in the end the ash even landed on his pants. I did gain some enlightenment. Qing Su said in a low voice. That was indeed the case. What did you gain? Gain no brains? Yihua, are you saying that I have no brains? No, I'm not talking about you alone, I'm talking about everyone. Yihua almost choked on his own cigarette. This bastard. I'm getting a bit carried away. However, what Qing Su said makes sense. When you are around, everyone has no brains. That fellow Wei Chang betrayed us? Qing Su asked curiously. Along with Qing Su's question, Yihua became a bit happy. You know about Wei Chang? How can I not remember about that man-eating monster? Qing Su let out a breath. Seems like you have remembered about him. More or less. Then why aren't you bowing? What are you standing there for? Qing Su rolled his eyes. Do you have to be so quick? If I had known, I would have said it. I didn't remember anything. What are you standing there for? Hurry up and move. You are so fat you need to move to lose weight. Qing Su really wanted to throw out a handful of poison. Qing Su had no choice but to stand up, but he was pressed down by Yihua. Forget it, with your body size if you were to bow you would look like a meatball. The corner of Qing Su's mouth twitched slightly. Your Honor, don't mess around. Welcome back to this sovereign's team. Thank you, Your Honor. Yihua was finally gratified. At least, Qing Su, this fellow is normal. Sigh, it is actually perfect now. Yihua let out a long sigh. Your Honor, this indestructible shrine seems to be a bit powerful. It is better for us to be more cautious. Qing Su warned. Yihua wrinkled his brows. To be able to make Wei Chang change sides, this indestructible shrine is indeed quite powerful. Furthermore, from what Dong Huang Fei said today, This indestructible shrine does have some capabilities. That's right, that's why, Your Honor, being a bit more cautious is not a bad thing. Yi Hua said faintly. Qing Su, sometimes being cautious is a good thing, but if you are overly cautious, that would be fear. What Your Honor said is extremely true, but you also said the same thing in the past. Yi Hua, damn it, is this Qing Su here to expose my past? And he is even here to expose my dark history? Can you not mention the past? Yi Hua said gravely. You are asking for a beating. All right, Your Honor, that kind of thing in the past was indeed not very good. It was a bit embarrassing. If you continue talking about it, you are going to embarrass yourself. Your Honor, please forgive me. Yi Hua let out a breath. He was a bit angered. You should deal with Dou Fushi first. Look at you, treating someone else like a lab rat. Fortunately, that person didn't become a fool. Yi Hua said gravely. Qing Su went into a daze for a moment, then said, That's not it, Your Honor, that person was very foolish in the past. I made him become smarter. Alright. Yi Hua felt that Qing Su was right too. But no matter what, Dou Fushi still tastes better than before. Qing Su didn't say anything. He waved his hand, and Dou Fushi, who was standing at the side, could be seen gradually waking up, and his pair of purple eyes could be seen becoming normal. It has been raining continuously. My house collapsed. I am sorry. End of chapter. Chapter 1237. Dou Fushi looked at His Honor, then looked at Qing Su, who was at the side. Dou Fushi went into a daze for about half a second, and the expression on his face slowly turned from shock to grievance. Afterward, Yi Hua fiercely hugged onto Yi Hua's thigh. Your Honor, this person. He humiliated me. I am so miserable. Yi Hua wrinkled his brows and looked towards Qing Su. I am starting to regret my decision. Can I change back to how I was just now? It should be possible. It'll just take some time. Qing Su nodded and said seriously. Your Honor, don't. I am your loyal subordinate. Dou Fushi was scared out of his wits. Actually, in the few days that he had been a puppet, he still had his own consciousness. Every day he had to take pills and bathe in bugs. It was simply disgusting. All right, be serious. Stand up. Yi Hua said faintly. You are a big man. Why are you crying? Your wife, soul separation, is the one who is a man. For you, she even went to train herself and almost died. Dou Fushi felt wronged and immediately stood behind Yi Hua with a vigilant look on his face. To this fatty, Yi Hua was just like a demon. Your Honor, are we going to take action tomorrow? Qing Su asked. If nothing unexpected happens, we will be taking action soon. Yi Hua nodded his head. Everything that the Donghuang family owes me, I have to pay them back. Of course, Qing Su wouldn't object. He loved big scenes, and it was especially comfortable to stir up trouble. Rest early. There should be a good show tomorrow. Yes. Yi Hua extinguished the cigarette, then walked into the room. Today the Empress actually went to sleep early. She actually doesn't plan to serve me in bed? In the past few days, I have not even had the time to take revenge against those who have killed me. After taking off his clothes, Yi Hua squeezed into the blanket and hugged onto Donghuang Baiji's soft body. In his heart, Yi Hua was feeling very happy. An outstanding woman like Donghuang Baiji will only be hugged by me. Don't mess around, I don't want to. Donghuang Baiji said in a low voice. Donghuang Baiji was not in the mood today. Of course, Yi Hua knew that Yi Hua was actually just going to hug her for a bit. In the end, the Empress thought that I was going to make a move on her. Do I, the Supreme Overlord, look like that kind of person? He had really underestimated the Supreme Overlord. Baiji, the truth will be revealed tomorrow. Yi Hua said tenderly. The truth is no longer important. That's good. Is that okay? Donghuang Baiji hammered Yi Hua's head unhappily. All right, your head. I'm not in a good mood unless you coax me. Sob, 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 Donghuang Baiji. Following Yi Hua's whining, Donghuang Baiji couldn't help but laugh out loud. This bad fellow, when he starts acting cute, no one is able to stop him. Yi Hua, don't learn from us and become a whining monster. Donghuang Baiji didn't know whether to laugh or cry. However, she was still very happy in her heart. After all, in order to make me happy, Yi Hua was willing to be a whining monster. Yi Hua also felt that it was very unnatural, but for the sake of their relationship he still had to. Is that okay now? You? I'm really convinced. Which man is like you? Be gentler. You're hurting me. I haven't touched you yet. Pain your head. Yi Hua flicked onto the Empress's forehead. The Empress pouted. But, Baiji, this pouting is no longer suitable for you. This is the action of a little girl. You are already past that age. The Empress wore a dumbfounded expression. Yi Hua, go make a bed on the floor. Sleep. Don't touch me. Looking at the Empress holding onto the blanket and rolling herself up, Yi Hua had a dumbfounded expression on his face. Is there something wrong with what I said just now? Baiji, what I said just now was to teach you to become a bit more mature, not to be so childish. Donghuang Baiji, look at our Ali, she likes to pout from time to time but you can't, you are already old. Yi Hua. If it weren't for us, you would be a bachelor for the rest of your life. How is that possible? With just a wave of my hand, there would be a whole bunch of women. Then go and look for a whole bunch of women, don't look for me anymore. Donghuang Baiji was about to go crazy from anger. Too lousy, not interested. Yi Hua said solemnly. Donghuang Baiji was so depressed that the whites of her eyes floated out. This bastard, he actually dares to say such words in front of my own wife. If it was any other woman they would have already started fighting with you. Seeing that the Empress didn't speak anymore, Yi Hua felt a bit bored. The night is long and I am unable to fall asleep. I can only take action silently. Wife. Yi Hua called out lightly. What? I love you. Donghuang Baiji, not knowing why, when Donghuang Baiji heard Yi Hua say these 3 words, she felt like laughing. This fellow can anger you to death and at the same time he can also make you laugh to death. Don't think that just because you say a few nice words I will let you play with me. Donghuang Baiji said angrily. Baiji, I can't fall asleep. Other than playing with you, I have no other entertainment. Scram. Donghuang Baiji felt that her blood pressure was a bit high. Sooner or later she will be angered to the point that she will have a stroke. Yi Hua couldn't understand why she would be laughing a second ago, and then get angry the next second. I have never been like this before. Wife. Don't talk. So boring. Go and masturbate. Yi Hua became silent. Donghuang Baiji was a bit puzzled. This fellow is actually not talking? Could it be that he is angry? Don't think that just because you are angry I will go and coax you. Wife, did you ever let pigs go when you were young? Yi Hua suddenly asked. Donghuang Baiji rolled her eyes and said unhappily, I didn't. Wife, you are so perverted, you didn't even let pigs go. Donghuang Baiji went into a daze for a moment, then flipped over and pressed onto Yi Hua. Yi Hua. You tricked me. Ah. Yi Hua let out a hearty laugh. Tricking my wife is quite interesting. You are still laughing, I'm going to hammer you to death. Yi Hua grabbed onto the Empress's hands, then flipped over beautifully, pressed onto her, and kissed her passionately and caressed her. And then, everything happened naturally. I am an expert at picking up girls. Not willing? That doesn't exist. If you want to learn more from me, then all the big sisters will flock to you. The next morning Yi Hua and Donghuang Baiji woke up early, and Yi Hua changed into his guard uniform. When a person becomes handsome, he will look good in anything he wears. Donghuang Baiji specially dressed up today, and her beauty was simply suffocatingly beautiful. Yi Hua felt proud just by looking at Donghuang Baiji. I even enjoyed myself last night. Donghuang Baiji looked at Yi Hua's expression. How can I not know what he is thinking? He is definitely thinking that I just had fun with this woman last night. How bold and unrestrained she is. From the looks of it, the Empress understands Yi Hua very well. After walking out of the door, Wan walked over while wearing the maid uniform, and Qing Su and Dou Fusher were also wearing the guard uniform. Donghuang Fei and Donghuang Qingru walked over slowly. End of chapter. Chapter 1238. Miss Baiji, this is the command plate. You can directly head to the orange building with this command plate. I won't be accompanying you all up, I understand. Donghuang Fei squeezed out a smile. Of course he wouldn't be leaving with Yi Hua and the others. What should I do if I get implicated? I will be in deep trouble. So, I understand. Donghuang Baiji accepted the command medallion and thanked Yi Hua. Donghuang Baiji appeared to be very polite. Yi Hua liked this aspect of the Empress very much, and the children were also taught very well. With the token in hand, the journey was smooth. Wan, who was in the team, was already sweating profusely. These people are trying to stir up trouble. How dare they walk into someone else's territory? What if that floor leader betrays us? How can your hearts be so big? On the other hand, Yi Hua was hoping that Donghuang Fei would go and inform on them, and after that he and the others would be completely surrounded, and after that he would be able to start acting cool. Let the people of the Donghuang clan know that this sovereign's woman is not someone they can afford to offend. Stop them. Right when Yi Hua finished thinking, an angry shout rang out from behind him, and then a group of people surrounded him. There were at least 10,000 people gathered above him, and there were also several thousand people surrounding him. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. Yi Hua was a little stupefied. I was just thinking about it blindly just now and it actually succeeded? Then all of you are forcing me to act pretentiously. What should I say? Right now, as long as His Honor says a word, all the people around Qingsu would be killed in an instant. It can be said that they wouldn't even know how they died. Baiji, what do you want to do? Yihua asked faintly. After all, this was Donghuang's territory, and it could be considered the Empress's maiden home. It was better to be safe. Donghuang Baiji stared ahead. She did not expect that she would encounter such a thing right after she came out. Yihua. Donghuang Baiji called out lightly. What happened? My legs are a little weak. What's wrong? Yihua asked worriedly. It's all because of you. How dare you ask me what's wrong? Yihua, let me do it. Yihua stood in front of Donghuang Baiji and protected her behind him. According to the usual practice, Yihua had to take out a stick of cigarette and light it up. If not, he would feel that something was missing. Just as Yihua was about to speak, everyone kneeled down. This time Yihua was completely stupefied. What is going on? Are you guys kneeling to me? Or kneel to the Empress? Right now, Donghuang Baiji was also feeling very tempted. Why do I feel like they are kneeling down to me? Could it be that I have already been exposed so quickly? But none of them were. Greetings, great uncle. Tens of thousands of people shouted in unison. That kind of majesty immediately swept across the entire place. Wan's face was already pale from fright. Why did something happen right after I just walked out of the door? I told you not to come, but now the grand uncle of the Donghuang clan is here. That was Donghuang Zizi. Within the entire Donghuang clan, he was the one with the most seniority. Two people walked over from afar, walking in the air with a majestic aura. Even before they arrived, their auras had already arrived. Yihua slightly narrowed his eyes and looked at the two people who were walking over. That old man should be Donghuang Ci. As for the young man beside the old man? Then I don't know him. Wait, this shouldn't be called a man, right? Feels like, it doesn't seem like a man. This man who was not a man was, of course, Donghuang. However, Donghuang Ying had never thought that he would see his empress in such an occasion. Empress is even more beautiful than before. I, Donghuang Ying, am the man who is going to marry Empress. No one is as noble as I, Donghuang Ying. This man. It's this man again. Back then, when Ying family showed off his might and made Ying family become his lackey, my father didn't dare to disobey, but I dared to. Empress is my Donghuang Ying's woman. No one should even think about tainting her. Who will? Who will? Empress, why don't you look at me? It's me. Back then you wanted to marry me. Why didn't you keep your words? Furthermore, you don't even recognize me now? Donghuang Baiji naturally didn't recognize Donghuang Ying. Back then she only said it in a fit of pique and she didn't even meet Donghuang Ying. Fortunately, the betrothal gift was robbed, and the one who robbed it was even Death Mage. I really didn't expect this. Yihua of course wouldn't recognize Death Mage. I have only heard of such a person, but I have never seen him before. If Qing Yutong and Yi Zizi were here, they would definitely have seen Death Mage before. After all, they were the ones who stepped on the lamp wick and broke it. Right now, Qing Su was very excited. The fight is finally going to start. Dou Fushi felt that it was time to show off his strength. Although he had been a little disgusted recently, his strength had definitely increased tremendously. At the moment, Jiang Wuyu and the East Emperor Pole were in the Orange Tower. Patriarch. Granduncle, bring some people and surround those people. A black-clothed man suddenly appeared and shouted respectfully. Donghuang Jishang's expression froze. Got it. The man in black disappeared in an instant. He was really competent. Your uncle was faster than you, Jiang Wuyu said in a deep voice. Yeah. He seems to be in a hurry. Who is that person? Donghuang Ji sighed deeply. You will know when the time comes. Let's go first. Things have already come to this and you still won't speak? Is there any meaning to this? Jiang Wuyu hurriedly chased after him. He felt that the Donghuang clan was about to undergo a huge change. At the venue, Donghuang Ci looked at Donghuang Baiji, and Donghuang Baiji looked at Donghuang Ci. As for Yihua, he took a look at Donghuang Ci, then looked at Donghuang Baiji. He felt that the two of them didn't look alike at all. This Donghuang was too ugly, but when he looked at the Empress, she was simply too beautiful. He couldn't even be compared to a single strand of the Empress's hair. What is your name? Donghuang Ci asked faintly. His tone contained a heavenly encompassing aura, causing others to have no choice but to speak the truth. Everyone could feel the might contained within his tone, and they lowered their heads slightly and remained silent. Donghuang Baiji was the same as well. Qing Su was already used to seeing Donghuang Baiji. Right now, Dou Fushi was also very strong, and he was able to casually resist Donghuang Baiji's attacks. However, Wanwan was a bit unable to resist. Yihua had no choice but to protect Wanwan. Donghuang Baiji said faintly, "My name is Donghuang Baiji." Donghuang Xi's long face didn't have any fluctuations. Donghuang Baiji. Welcome home. Following this sentence, both Yihua and Donghuang Baiji were stupefied. The disciples in the surroundings were stupefied. Just what is going on? They mustered such a large force, and in the end they only surrounded Donghuang Baiji for a bit. Yihua was filled with hatred. I should have made a ruckus earlier, but right now Donghuang Ji's tone is so low. Where would I find a good excuse? However, right at this moment, Donghuang Ji appeared. Meanwhile, Jiang Wuyu hid within the crowd and didn't appear together with Donghuang Ji to prevent others from gossiping about him. Greetings, family head. Everyone kneeled down and greeted Donghuang Ci. Donghuang Ji waved his hand, then cupped his hands towards Donghuang Ci and said, "Uncle, why did you come out today?" End of this chapter. Chapter 1239. So it's the patriarch. Donghuang said softly. However, the tone of his voice was a little strange. Especially the way he addressed Lin Fan as family head. It was as if he was addressing a child. It wasn't very respectful. At the very least, that was what Yihua heard. Yihua also saw the legendary family head. He couldn't be counted as an old man. At most, he could be counted as someone who had just stepped into the ranks of old men. However, to these people, age was nothing. However, Yihua was very curious as to which of these two people would have a relationship with the Empress. Whose child was the Empress? "Uncle, what are you doing?" Donghuang Ji took a look at Donghuang Baiji and he was clearly a bit stunned. Of course it's to welcome the younger generation back home. Baiji, don't you think so? Donghuang Baiji looked at Donghuang Baiji and said with a slight smile. Yihua felt that this smile didn't seem to be a real smile, and it belonged to the kind where the skin and flesh didn't move. Donghuang Baiji didn't feel very good, and thus she didn't say anything. However, the surrounding disciples were all astonished. They thought that they were here to capture the enemy, but who would have thought that they were here to welcome someone? Donghuang did not mind this time and said softly, "Child, I know you have a lot of questions in your heart. I will tell you. Uncle, you don't have to worry about this." Donghuang Jishang smiled. Yihua could clearly feel that there was a problem with this. According to the development of the plot, this East Emperor Ji shouldn't be a good person, and this East Emperor Jishang shouldn't be a good person either. Seems like only this Supreme One is a good one. My Empress is really... Although Yihua was thinking like this, he felt that between the two of them, one of them would definitely want to harm Donghuang Yi. Especially this Donghuang Yi. With just a glance, Donghuang Yi could tell that he wasn't a good person. Beside him was a guy who was neither a man nor a woman. How can that be? No matter what, this is a big matter of the Eastern royal family. We cannot look down on it. Donghuang chuckled, appearing quite strange. Donghuang Ji frowned for a moment, then he smiled and said, "Why don't we talk inside?" This time, Donghuang Baiji didn't pay any attention to those words and said to Donghuang Baiji, "Child, can you display your abilities?" Everyone was confused. Show what? Of course, it was to display the pure bloodline of Donghuang. Donghuang Baiji didn't know whether she should do this or not. Yihua seemed to be able to sense the bewilderment that the Empress was feeling. Turning his head around, Yihua said with a smile, "Let them see what is called purity." Looking at Yihua's smile, Donghuang Baiji felt that her confidence had returned, and she wasn't that afraid anymore. Nodding her head, Donghuang Baiji regained her confidence, and an imposing aura was being emitted out from the Empress body. This is what an Empress should be like. Everyone was able to sense the change in Donghuang Baiji. This was a familiar aura, very pure. So pure to the point that Donghuang Ji and Donghuang Jishang frowned. This purity was above theirs. A gigantic three-legged golden crow could be seen appearing behind Donghuang Baiji's back. The golden wings of the crow spread open, and boundless might engulfed the entire world. This is the real three-legged golden crow. Everyone knelt down. The three-legged golden crow seemed to have its own intelligence. It raised its head slightly and enjoyed everyone's worship. Donghuang Ji and Donghuang Ji were incomparably shocked as well. This bloodline was purer than anyone else's. However, when it appeared on a woman, it was unimaginable. Donghuang Ying, who was at the side, had a look of worship on his face. "I am her fiancé. It's like you can only kneel down and worship me." Donghuang Ying was even fantasizing that in the future, he would be able to stand beside Donghuang Baiji and enjoy these ants kneeling down and worshipping him. I, Donghuang Ying, will not hesitate to marry the Empress. I, Donghuang Ying, love this kind of feeling. You people, you can only kneel down and worship my women. My eyesight is so sharp. Among the millions and millions of women, I was able to find someone as beautiful as Dong Huang Baiji. Furthermore, she even has such an identity. I'm truly lucky. Dong Huang Baiji kept the image and there was not much expression on her face. Dong Huangji appeared to be a bit grave as he tightly wrinkled his brows. Dong Huangji calmed himself down and said with a smile, as expected of the purest bloodline, Dong Huang Baiji, the entire Dong Huang family is proud of you. Dong Huang Baiji. All of the disciples shouted out. Why do I feel that this Dong Huangji seems to be chasing Dong Huangji Shang off the stage? From what Dong Huangji said just now, the purest bloodline means that Dong Huangji Shang is even purer than Dong Huangji Shang. And to say that the entire Dong Huang family is proud of the empress, isn't this just making Dong Huang Baiji's identity high? Was this to pave the way for him to become the next patriarch? This Dong Huangji's schemes are very deep. With just a single sentence, he managed to make everyone approve of this person who had just entered the clan. Dong Huang Baiji appeared to be very calm and collected. After all, she had been following Yi Hua, and what kind of big scenes had she not seen before? A scene like this could only be considered as child's play. All I want to do is to find out about my own identity. What family head? I don't really care about it, it's the same for anyone to be the family head. Child, come with me. Dong Huang said lightly, then turned around and walked towards the building that was at the side of the orange building. If one did not look carefully, one would not be able to see it. After all, the house seemed to be in the clouds. Yi Hua wanted to see what kind of tricks Dong Huang Baiji was going to play this time. Thus, he brought along Dong Huang Baiji and followed after Dong Huang Baiji. Qing Su and Dou Fusher followed suit. Wan had been so scared that her legs had turned to jelly, but she hadn't expected the situation to change like this. Jiang Wuyu, who was within the crowd, was very astonished. This woman? He had never heard of such a pure bloodline before. It seemed that she was an illegitimate daughter. This is practically a scandal. It seemed like the Dong Huang clan was going to become the main topic. Who would have thought? Dong Huang Jishang helplessly followed suit. Amidst the clouds, an ordinary courtyard, flowers, plants, an ordinary pavilion, an ordinary house, everything was so simple and unadorned. It's a bit simple and unadorned. Dong Huang Jishang said lightly with an indifferent look on his face. Dong Huang Ying would occasionally sneak a peek at the empress. I really want to hold on to that little hand of mine, but now is not the time. Yi Hua seemed to be able to feel that this androgynous person was currently sneaking a peek at his wife. Dong Huang Baiji was also able to feel that this person was occasionally sneaking a peek at her. Dong Huang Baiji really wanted to dig out his eyes, because she could see possession within his gaze. However, Dong Huang Baiji still wanted to know where exactly did I come from. My father. Is he my biological father? And my mother that I have never seen before. Everyone walked into the house and discovered that the furnishings within the house were even more simple and unadorned. A bed, a table and a few stools. Dong Huang Ying, go and pour some tea. Yes. Dong Huang Ying replied respectfully, then left. Dong Huang Jishang looked towards his nephew and said lightly, Jishang, aren't you going to host the youngsters' assembly? It's still early. Dong Huang Jishang said indifferently. End of chapter. Chapter 1240. Dong Huang Ji nodded his head. Sit down then. All right, uncle. Yi Hua and Dong Huang Baiji sat down, while the others stood at the side. At this moment, Dong Huang Ji asked curiously, Child, this is my husband. Oh good. Dong Huang Ji looked at Yi Hua and praised. Yi Hua remained silent. Whether I am good or not, it is not up to others to judge. Dong Huang Ji sized up Yi Hua and discovered that this man is a bit arrogant. If Yi Hua isn't arrogant, would he still be called Yi Hua? After pausing for a while, Dong Huang Ji looked at Dong Huang Baiji and said, Child, it has been hard on you for so many years. Dong Huang Baiji didn't know why, but why do I feel that? I feel that this is the love of an elder? That tone of hers is doting? What is going on? For even Yi Hua to have such a feeling, just what exactly is going on? Me? Who is it? Dong Huang Baiji asked gravely. Dong Huang Ji smiled faintly. Child, do you still remember your childhood? Childhood? Dong Huang Baiji went into a daze. My childhood? My childhood? Dong Huang Baiji was a bit confused. What was my childhood? Seeing that Dong Huang Baiji's expression was a bit weird, Yi Hua asked gravely, What's wrong? Yi Hua, my childhood? I can't remember. You can't remember? Yi Hua asked confusedly. Dong Huang Baiji indeed couldn't remember her childhood. It seemed that ever since she could remember, she had the appearance of an adult. He had never thought about it, but after Dong Huang's question, he couldn't think about it anymore. Yi Hua asked gravely, Baiji, where did you grow up? I don't know. I seem to have always, looking at Dong Huang Baiji's expression, Yi Hua was certain. That father back then is definitely not my father. Furthermore, Dong Huang Baiji was taken down after she became an adult. Right now, Yi Hua was very curious just what kind of secret does the Empress have. Dong Huangji pointed at the table and said lightly, "It is normal that you don't know because the place where you grew up is here." Hearing such news, Dong Huang Baiji's mind went blank. I actually grew up here? Then, how are we going to explain what happened in Voidless Realm? I'm talking about here. Dong Huang emphasized again. Dong Huangji Shang, who was at the side, didn't say anything. Here. Yi Hua asked puzzledly. Yes, your wife grew up here. Yi Hua was really confused. My woman actually grew up in such a small place. Then what was the reason? Who let Dong Huang Baiji grow up here? Dong Huang Baiji was already shocked to the point that she was speechless. Extreme High, are you still not going to call for reinforcements? Dong Huang said indifferently. The corner of Yi Hua's mouth twitched slightly. Call for help? What does that mean? Dong Huang Baiji? Call me mommy? *CK me. This plot was a little exaggerated. Believe it or not, I will smash your head. Qing Su and Dou Fusher, who were standing at the side, also had stupefied looks on their faces. It seems like we are thinking the same thing as Yi Hua. Could it be that this family head is going to call me mom? If that's the case, then this matter is going to be huge. His honor is actually so miserable. Wan's chin was about to drop onto the ground. This Dong Huang family's gossip is simply too explosive. Dong Huang Baiji was startled. Looking at Dong Huangji, who was in front of her, this slightly older man, he wouldn't start calling me mommy, right? Don't call me mommy. Dong Huangji closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Everyone looked at Dong Huangji's mouth movements and held their breaths. Even their scalps were a little numb. Yi Hua felt that as long as this Dong Huangji calls me mommy, I will slaughter everyone here. Everything is a plot. Big sister. Following the word big sister, Dong Huang Baiji was stupefied. Yi Hua's mouth slightly opened. Qing Su and Dou Fusher didn't expect this at all. This is almost the same as calling me mommy. Wan also didn't expect that this Dong Huangji would actually call me big sister. What the *CK was going on? Everyone's mind was filled with a huge question mark. I am your big sister? Dong Huang Baiji asked blankly. Dong Huangji nodded his head, and his expression seemed to be a little unwilling. However, Dong Huangji said lightly, "Child, you are my big brother's daughter. Dong Huangji is your blood-related younger brother, and Dong Huangshini is also your blood-related younger brother." Dong Huang Baiji started sweating. Just what is going on? How did I suddenly have two blood-related younger brothers? Yi Hua felt that, it's hopeless, it's completely hopeless. Originally, I thought that this is a plot, and I suspect that this is a plot, but looking at the situation, it should be a problem with Dong Huang Baiji herself. Why did I come here alone when I was young? Either I have mental problems or I don't get along well with others just like me. Then why did I go to other places? What? Dong Huang Baiji had a lot of questions in her mind. Dong Huangji said lightly, because you killed Dong Huangshini, and almost killed Dong Huangji as well. Yi Hua's expression was very interesting. To be able to make a supreme overlord reveal an embarrassed expression, I reckon that there isn't anyone else in this world. My own woman actually didn't even let off her blood-related younger brother. Isn't this too cruel? Could it be that this Dong Huangji doesn't have a good expression the moment he arrived? I am about to be killed by my own big sister. How can I still have a good expression? However, the Supreme Overlord, I seem to be liking the Empress more and more. I just like this kind of blood Empress. This is too explosive. Dong Huang Baiji didn't know what to say anymore. How did I become the person who killed my blood-related younger brother? It must be fake. You have had a problem since you were young. Dong Huangji pointed at his own head and said. Yi Hua was speechless. I actually guessed correctly. The Empress was mentally abnormal when she was young, which is why she was left alone at the side. After that, the Empress who had gone insane killed her own blood-related younger brother, and in the end the Empress was exiled from the family. This should be the plot. There shouldn't be anything wrong with it. However, why do I feel that there isn't anything wrong with the Empress's intelligence? Dong Huangji said lightly, when you were born the entire Dong Huang family suffered from a plague and a lot of people died. Therefore you are an inauspicious person. Furthermore, you have a bit of a mental problem which made everyone feel even more suspicious of you, and that's why they locked you up here. Your father had only seen you twice. The first time was when you were born, and the second time was when he sent you away. Your mother had only seen you once, and that was when you were born. All of the nannies who had taken care of you before had already died. Even now, I can still vaguely remember the short and small you holding onto a small knife and standing beside a corpse. Dong Huangji's words caused everyone to be shocked. Yihua felt that what Dong Huangji said was nonsense. After all, there isn't any evidence at all. Dong Huang Baiji doesn't believe that I am that kind of person. How is that possible? End of this chapter. Chapter 1241. What? Mother only met her once? Yihua asked curiously. Dong Huangji Shang said faintly, Mother knew that big sister killed her little brother, so she was angered to death. Yihua, Dong Huang Baiji found it hard to believe. This is fake, right? Qing Su and Dou Fushi were both shocked. Your wife actually has such a dark history? Dong Huangji said faintly, Baiji actually, some things cannot be blamed on you. Those nannies who took care of you back then all had the intention to harm you, that's why you fought back. I only found out about this matter after investigating for a long time, and I suspect that their goal was to harm you. Yihua felt that this old man really knows how to keep me in suspense. I was just wondering why my woman looks so kind-hearted as to kill people indiscriminately. Back then, although there was something wrong with your mind, most of it was normal. Furthermore, you were more mature than your peers and your strength was also top-notch. At that time, I realized that you might be the first goddess in the entire 9 provinces and 5 seas, and not Mengyao. It's a pity that Dong Huangshen entered the indestructible shrine. Back then you saw through him with a single look and killed him. And when Ji Shang wanted to save Big Brother, he was injured by you as well. You are simply too strong. This is what a pure bloodline looks like. In the end, your father still agreed to send you away, erased your memories, sealed your strength, and told Dong Huangpa to protect you. Child, after so many years have passed, you are finally back. Seeing how you are now, I believe that your father's spirit in heaven would be gratified. After all, you are also his flesh and blood. Everyone wanted to kill you, but he protected you. Yihua remained silent. I don't know if what this old man said is true or not. While Dong Huang Baiji's expression was calm, her heart was in turmoil and she couldn't calm down for a long time. Is my identity real or not? Can I believe what they say? Dong Huangji said lightly, I know that you won't believe me. After finished speaking, he waved his hand, and an image appeared in front of him. This was Dong Huang Baiji. She was currently sitting in the pavilion outside, and her expression was a bit dull, making her look very young. Yihua looked at the pavilion outside. It looks exactly the same. However, this doesn't seem to explain anything. Dong Huangji looked calm, but his heart wasn't calm either. Yihua, I'm a bit tired. Dong Huangji said lightly. East Emperor nodded his head. East Emperor Ji stood up and said, I'll bring you guys to rest. Yihua didn't say anything. I have a feeling that there's something fishy about this, but for the time being, I don't know what it is. Should he let White Bones come over to scout for information? After all, White Bones was an abnormal person, a bug. Forget it, there's no meaning in the main Supreme Overlord cheating like this. The main Supreme Overlord is already cheating with his own strength. If his subordinates were to cheat as well, then that would be too arrogant. Following behind Dong Huangji Shang, everyone arrived at the Orange House. On the way, Dong Huangji Shang was very quiet, seemingly as if he didn't want to pay attention to this big sister. Yihua didn't say anything. So what if you don't pay attention to me? My woman doesn't care about this place at all. The disciples of the Orange Tower were puzzled. Why would the family head personally bring a few people along? He was puzzled. Feel free to stay in this row of rooms. Dong Huangji Shang said softly. Yihua said faintly, you can go now. Dong Huangji Shang looked at Yihua with hostility in his eyes. Yihua was not afraid at all, and he stared back at Dong Huangji Shang. I have never been afraid of anyone. If you're hungry, call the servants. Dong Huangji Shang spoke indifferently. After that, he disappeared from his location. Yihua snorted coldly, Baiji, go and rest for a while. I don't think that these people are good people. I'm going to rest, Yihua. Dong Huang Baiji said in a low voice, then walked into the room. Yihua still wanted to go in and comfort the Empress, but in the end, Dong Huang Baiji closed the door. In Dong Huangji's room, Dong Huangji appeared once again. Uncle, are you still unwilling to give up just like father? All these years I've been waiting for Baiji's return. Dong Huangji Shang said in a deep voice. Ji Shang, your father would do anything for this matter. Now Baiji has come back on her own accord. Isn't this a good thing? Dong Huang Yi took a sip of his tea. Dong Huang Ying, who was standing behind him, was also a little confused. Dong Huangji Shang said in a deep voice, Uncle, back then when Dong Huangpa escaped with Big Sister, wasn't it because he wanted to avoid your pursuit? Moreover, Eastern Emperor Xin Yi deserved to die. Bastard. Why did Dong Huang say that he was your elder brother? Dong Huang Baiji's body is a sacrificial offering. Uncle, no one is a sacrificial offering the moment they are born. These are all groundless things that you all forcefully added onto them. Dong Huangji Shang said in displeasure. Dong Huangji let out a nasal snort, then said in disdain, didn't you not point it out just now? You are afraid that Dong Huang Baiji will threaten your position, right? Isn't that all because of you, who allowed Baiji to clearly display her strength in front of everyone? Dong Huangji Shang hated this kind of person. Dong Huangji Shang calculated everything and used his position to force me to stand on his side. Nephew, you are in charge of the entire Dong Huang family. When did uncle interfere with your matters? You also know what uncle is waiting for, and you also know that for the sake of this matter, uncle will do anything. Dong Huangji Shang took a deep breath, then took a look at Dong Huanging with a look of disgust, then left. This is also a kind of tacit agreement. At this moment, Dong Huanging asked respectfully, Master, didn't you say that? Dong Huang Baiji, that's right, I won't go back on what I promised you. Isn't a soulless body better? Dong Huangji said faintly, then walked out of the room, leaving behind Dong Huanging who had a strange look on his face. A soulless body? Dong Huanging tightly wrinkled his brows. What I want is not a soulless body. An empress like that would no longer be an empress. Master, you actually lied to me. Dong Huanging was very angry. We had a promise back then. I sold my soul so that I can obtain Dong Huang Baiji. But now, you actually went back on your words. Dong Huanging tightly clenched his fists, and his eyes were filled with unwillingness. On the other side, Yi Hua, Qing Su, and the others were currently feeling bored, and Wan had already gone back to her room to sleep. Yi Hua brought Qing Su and Dou Fusher to the Orange Building, planning to go and watch that youngster's match. Qing Su, do you have any way to lure out imperishable shrines people? Yi Hua asked faintly. Subordinate doesn't have any way to do it yet. Yi Hua looked at the enormous Orange Building. This Orange Building is probably even bigger than my Wushu Empire. Is there any way to lure out Wei Chang? Yi Hua asked again. Subordinate doesn't have any way to do it yet. Yi Hua, Dou Fusher, tell me. Dou Fusher's heart was about to collapse. Why do I keep asking questions? I don't want to answer questions at all. Your Honor, subordinate doesn't dare to say. End of chapter. Chapter 1242. Just say it. Your Honor, I feel that Lord Qing Su has a better idea. Dou Fusher wasn't going to fall for Qing Su's trick. Qing Su said softly, Your Honor, subordinate believes that Wei Chang will appear sooner or later. Yi Hua felt that it was better not to ask. These two people still don't have brains. However, Your Honor, I feel that Dong Huang is a little strange this time. Qing Su said in a low voice. Dou Fusher nodded. I still think that person is a little strange. Yi Hua took out a stick of cigarette and lit it up, then said faintly, I feel that everyone is acting weird. The three of them walked slowly towards the youth assembly. They stood high up on the spectator stand. Although it was a little far away, it was not a hindrance. On a stage, a fierce battle was currently happening. However, Yi Hua didn't have the mood to watch it at all. Qing Su, if they wanted to do something bad to Baiji, when would they choose to do it? Yi Hua asked curiously. Qing Su said in a low voice, If it were me, now would be the best time. No. Yi Hua muttered. That's right. I am not by Dong Huang Baiji's side right now. This is a good opportunity for me to make my move. He knew that Dong Huang Baiji's mood wasn't good, and she would definitely want to be alone. There weren't many people around her, and it would be the best time for him to make his move. After hearing that, Yi Hua did not become excited, and he also did not have any plans to go back. Even if something were to happen, it would be them who would be in trouble. You guys really don't know anything about Her Majesty. She is a fiery hot woman. Only in front of me she is like a little lamb. Just as they were chatting, a person appeared behind them. Yi Hua and the others knew about it, but none of them chose to turn their heads back. They were just that arrogant. Since they were standing at the back alone, did they have to turn their heads back? There are too few people who are able to make me turn back. Dong Huang Baiji is in danger. The person who came was naturally Dong Huanging. He knew that Dong Huanging had already gone to harm Dong Huang Baiji, and he was powerless to do anything about it. Thus, he could only come and tell Yi Hua about it. Although Dong Huanging wanted the Empress, he wanted the complete Empress, not a soulless shell. Yi Hua heard it, but he still didn't turn his head around. Why are you telling me all these? What? Dong Huang Baiji is in danger, aren't you going to save her? Dong Huanging asked in a deep voice. Why was this man so calm? He was like this when he attacked Ding family and he was still like this now. Save her? You don't understand. You should go and save your people. Yi Hua smoked the cigarette and blew a mouthful of smoke into the air, appearing to be very comfortable. I was just worrying that the ghost did not come out, and now that the ghost has come out by itself, it saved me a lot of trouble. Dong Huangying frowned, then turned around and left. The Empress must have been blind to marry such a man. Within Dong Huang Baiji's room right now, Dong Huang Baiji was not lying on the bed. Instead, she was sitting beside the wooden window and looking into the distance. His mind was in a mess and he didn't know what to do. In the past, I seemed to be a bad woman. In any case, I was the kind of woman that was not welcomed and was doubted by everyone. Dong dong dong. At this moment the door rang. Who? Dong Huang Baiji asked confusedly. Yi Hua definitely wouldn't knock on the door, and Yi Hua's subordinates wouldn't knock on the door either. Baiji, it's me. Dong Huang's voice sounded slowly. This caused Dong Huang Baiji to feel very puzzled. Why did this man come here? It was very strange. Please come in. Dong Huang Baiji shouted out in a low voice. Dong Huang Ji pushed open the wooden door and walked in, then said with a smile, Baiji, have you gotten used to living here? It's pretty good, the environment here is pretty good. Dong Huang Baiji said lightly, seemingly not putting up her guard against Dong Huang Ji. A trace of a smile appeared on Dong Huang Baiji's face. It's fine as long as you feel that it's good. It has been a very long time since you have returned home. Oh. Everything here is very unfamiliar to me. Dong Huang Baiji said faintly. She did not feel that this place was her home. Where there is a home there will definitely be a Yi Hua. Dong Huang Ji laughed lightly, then sat on the wooden chair and patted the white shirt that he was wearing. Baiji, how is your body? Dong Huang Ji suddenly asked. Dong Huang Baiji's gaze became serious. Leaning on the windowsill with one of her hands, Dong Huang Baiji looked at the back of Dong Huang Ji's head with a puzzled expression. You? Baiji, I am really happy that you are able to come back. After all, I have been waiting for you for a long time and in the end I was about to give up. However, I met a person. At that time, I knew that we would meet each other sooner or later, and thus I have been waiting for you. If Dong Huang Baiji still doesn't understand right now, then she would have been an empress for nothing. This Dong Huang Ji wants to harm me, and I am the one who delivered myself to him. However, Dong Huang Baiji was also very confused. What is the name of that person that you are talking about? Oh, his name is Dong Huangying. He is a slave that I took in. In the past he was called Xianxia, right? Xianxia. Although Dong Huang Baiji had never met Xianxia before, she still knew that name. It's actually that. Dong Huang Baiji doesn't even know how to address that person anymore. Back then, I only went to that place because I was angry. I didn't expect that Xianxia would actually become Dong Huangying. My God, I didn't expect that. Do you feel that your body doesn't have any strength left? Dong Huang Ji asked faintly. What are you trying to do? Dong Huang Baiji questioned coldly. Dong Huang Ji stood up, then turned around and looked towards the weak Dong Huang Baiji. The Dong Huang family is afraid of one thing, dragon incense. This is a type of sandalwood incense. As long as one smells it, one's entire body will become weak, and one will not be able to circulate one's energy. Dong Huang Baiji looked towards the sandalwood incense that was at the side and tightly wrinkled her brows. You guys had planned this from the start. I'm sorry, what you said is correct. Everything had indeed been planned out. Why? Your attitude in the past wasn't like this. Could it be that everything that you said was a lie? Dong Huang Baiji tightly held onto the windowsill, not letting her body fall down. Beads of sweat had already dripped down from her forehead, and she was gasping for breath. Dong Huang Ji took out a handkerchief and lightly wiped away Dong Huang Baiji's sweat. Child, you were born with extraordinary talent, and even your father was envious of you. Your bloodline is the purest in history. This caused our hearts to be clouded by lard, and in order to obtain your bloodline, we could only separate you and raise you separately. You guys are raising me like this? You can understand it that way. However, I didn't expect that your strength would become stronger and stronger, and it seems like you are a bit out of control. Originally, your father planned to directly kill you and seize the power of your bloodline, but what a pity. You killed a path of blood out of him. Also, because of you, your mother took a blade from your father, and that is the true cause of her death. Dong Huang Ji said with a slight smile, seemingly not placing the matter in his heart at all. To experts like them, as long as there was a better way to break through, they would be willing to pay any price. End of this chapter. Chapter 1243. Furthermore, Dong Huang Baiji was only a child, and this child was born by them in the first place. Therefore they believed that they had the right to decide the life and death of this child. This was the cruelty of a large clan. No, it should be the cruelty of the world. Donghuang Baiji finally understood. So it turns out that what she said earlier was all a lie, and this is the truth. He had been locked up since he was born. It could be explained as being raised. These people were just spying on his bloodline. It was a tragedy to be born in such a family. You want to obtain my bloodline? Donghuang Baiji asked in puzzlement. That's right, child. Your bloodline is the purest in the Eastern Emperor clan. If you obtain it, unifying the 9 prefectures and 5 seas is also possible. This time, Donghuang was not interested in the position of clan leader, but in the 9 prefectures and 5 seas. He wanted to get rid of the other clans to show how strong the Donghuang clan was. Donghuang Baiji knew about the temptation of power, but she didn't expect that they would be so cruel just for the sake of power. Child, do not be afraid. There will be no pain. This time, Donghuang flipped his palm and a black pillar appeared in his hand. This pearl was prepared for you. Your father didn't get to enjoy it, so I got lucky. This time Donghuang smiled. This smile of his seemed to be sincere and happy, as if he had finally achieved what he had been waiting for many years. However, at this moment the door was pushed open, interrupting their conversation. Donghuang's face darkened. He said coldly, "What are you doing here?" The person who came was naturally Donghuang Ying. Just now, Donghuang Ying went to look for Yihua, yet Yihua didn't come. How could Donghuang Ying possibly sit still? The Empress was won by me, Donghuang. Including the soul. No one could move. Master, don't suck her soul. This was the first time Donghuang Ying acted arrogantly in front of Donghuang Yi. In the past he was always respectful towards Donghuang Yi. But now he seemed very calm. Because Donghuang Ying knew that if he did that he might very well die. But even if he were to die, he would remain firm in his belief. The Empress is mine. I'm the man who's going to marry the Empress. Donghuang Baiji looked towards Xianxia. This was the person that she wanted to marry in the past. However, that was only a decision that she made after getting angry. Donghuang Ji didn't even turn his head and said indifferently, "Who do you think you are? How dare you beg me? You promised me before. Let me have her." Donghuang Ying shouted angrily. This liar. Hearing Donghuang Ying's words, Donghuang Baiji was very surprised. I didn't expect that they would have such a transaction. In that case they are in conflict right now? It seems like you're here to question my decision. This time, Donghuang Ying was already emitting killing intent. However, Donghuang Ying didn't seem to be afraid at all. He wanted to fight to the end. Donghuang Ying said in a deep voice, "That is what you promised me. Then I've decided right now. I won't agree. Then I can only use the most primitive method." Donghuang Ying immediately released his aura. Obviously his aura was much stronger than before. But no matter how strong he was, he paled in comparison to Donghuang. He didn't even have the strength to fight back. "Seems like you want to die," Donghuang said indifferently and raised his palm. Donghuang Ying, who was imposing just a moment ago, was instantly suppressed. His entire body seemed to be tied up by something, and his face revealed a painful expression. "When you sold your soul to me there were no more conditions." Donghuang slowly clenched his fists. As for Donghuang Ying, he felt as if his body was being squeezed, and his 7 apertures were bleeding. "Bah! The Empress is mine. Everyone wants to snatch her away from me." Donghuang Ying's obsession was a bit terrifying. Even if he was going to die right now, he wasn't afraid at all. Reckless fool. Donghuang clenched his fists tightly. Crack. All of the bones in Donghuang Ying's body began cracking. However, it couldn't be seen from the outside at all. But even so, Donghuang Ying's gaze was still on Donghuang Baiji's body. "Next life. In my next life I still want to marry you. At that time no one will be able to stop me." Donghuang Ying waved his hand, and Donghuang Ying's body turned into dust and disappeared from the room. "I gave you an inch and you want a foot. I promised to give you a physical body, yet you are still not satisfied," Donghuang Ying said in disdain. Donghuang Baiji leaned on the windowsill and gasped for breath. "You even killed your subordinate." "He is not a subordinate, he is just a person who is neither male nor female. Even an ant is nobler than him," Donghuang Ying said lightly. Yihua claimed that he was an inhumane person, but compared to them Yihua was rather compassionate. Towards Xianxia's death, Donghuang Baiji didn't feel much. After all, so many years had passed, and Xianxia suddenly appeared and even collaborated with others to deal with me. I was disturbed by him for a while. Let's begin. I have waited for this moment for a long time, and I don't want to continue waiting any longer. Child, thank you. The black pearl floated up from Dong Huang Ying's palm. Dong Huang Baiji could be seen with the naked eye. Needless to say, the black pearl was definitely absorbing Dong Huang Baiji's bloodline. Dong Huang Ying's gaze was filled with excitement. I am going to possess the strongest bloodline very soon. That indestructible Shrine's Palace Master is going to teach me a lesson with a slap. Dong Huang Baiji could feel that the bloodline within her body was currently trembling. This pearl is indeed very powerful. However, Dong Huang Ying slightly wrinkled his brows. I have been absorbing for such a long time, why isn't there any reaction? This doesn't seem to be possible. While wrinkling his brows, Dong Huang Ying continued to wait. Dong Huang Ying, are you feeling very confused? Dong Huang Baiji said in a low voice. Dong Huang Ying did not say anything. I don't feel very good. Logically speaking, I have already absorbed all of my bloodline, so why isn't there any reaction at all? Dong Huang Baiji continued, in actuality, other than Dong Huang's bloodline, there is another bloodline within my body. There is another bloodline? Dong Huang Ying cried out in surprise. That's right, that bloodline is called Yihua's bloodline. Dong Huang Baiji knew that the power of Yihua's bloodline had already fused with her body, even Xianxia had Yihua's bloodline. To be more precise, as long as one gives birth to Yihua's child, one would be able to possess Yihua's bloodline. This is definitely a super great benefit. If all the women were to know about this, they would definitely flock towards it. This is simply a cheating tool. Yihua's bloodline? What bloodline is this? Dong Huang Ying asked confusedly. This bloodline is very powerful to the point that I don't even know how powerful I am. Dong Huang Baiji raised her head and looked towards Dong Huang Ying. Her slightly arched body gradually straightened up. Although the black pearl was absorbing the bloodline, it was unable to absorb anything. Dong Huang Ying didn't believe it. Stretching out his hand, Dong Huang Baiji held onto the black pearl with his hand and used his own cultivation technique to increase the absorption power. Dong Huang Baiji just stood there without moving. However, Dong Huang Ying's expression became more and more grave. How is this possible? It is impossible for there to be a mistake. End of this chapter. Chapter 1244. Dong Huang Ji, the one who made a mistake is not the pearl but yourselves. Dong Huang Baiji said coldly. She was extremely disappointed in this family. Dong Huang Ji looked at Dong Huang Baiji in disbelief. You are not Dong Huang Baiji. Are you panicking? Dong Huang Baiji slowly sat on the wooden chair at the side. Dong Huang Baiji's slender fingers were placed on the armrest as she looked at Dong Huang Ci with her eyes. Dong Huang Baiji appeared exceptionally calm. Compared to the perplexed Dong Huang Ci from before, the current Dong Huang Baiji was the real empress. Dong Huang Ji's expression tensed up as he stared at Dong Huang Baiji, as if he was trying to see through her. However, he didn't manage to see through her. After a long time, Dong Huang Ji laughed lightly and said faintly, Baiji, I have still underestimated you. As expected of the most talented person in Dong Huang family. After so many years, you have become even more powerful than before. Seems like your pure bloodline has helped you quite a bit. I don't know about bloodline, but I do know that having a powerful man is much more important than bloodline. Dong Huang Baiji's lips formed an arc. Bloodline is nothing. Dong Huang Ji frowned. He didn't expect that this would happen and deviate from his plan. Looking at Dong Huang Baiji in front of him, Dong Huang Ji had the intention to kill her. However, if he were to make a move, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. At that time, everyone would know that he was going to steal her bloodline. After all, Dong Huang Baiji had displayed her bloodline before. I shouldn't have done that back then, but who knew? This woman actually became so powerful that I can't even suck her bloodline anymore. Are you thinking of killing me? Dong Huang Baiji asked lightly without any fear. But are you afraid that the commotion would be too big and that it wouldn't be easy to clean up the mess? Dong Huang Baiji was, after all, an empress. Dong Huang Ji said gravely, Baiji, you have become very smart, but this will only speed up your death. You want me to die? Are you sure? After all, I have a man who regards me as important as his life. Dong Huang Baiji said proudly. In any case, Yihua is not here, so I might as well boast as I want. Dong Huang Ji snorted coldly, Baiji, the current you looks much more comfortable than before. Of course, because I'm not that easy to provoke and I won't be bullied by you. Dong Huang Baiji's tone gradually became cold. Towards those who wanted to harm her own people, Dong Huang Baiji would never be soft-hearted. On this point she was different from Xianxia. So, therefore you will die today. Dong Huang Baiji said lightly, announcing Dong Huang's death. Dong Huang chuckled. You're announcing my death? How arrogant, even more arrogant than before. You are thinking that I don't dare to make a move here, right? At that time, if the commotion were to become too big, it would not be good for me either. After all, if I were to kill you, my reputation would not be good. Dong Huang Baiji said lightly. So you still know. This is also the reason why I didn't kill you. Dong Huang Baiji said in disdain. This Dong Huang Baiji is a bit hard to grasp. Just now, when Dong Huang Baiji sucked on the blood, I knew that Dong Huang Baiji's strength is definitely not beneath mine. But I want to tell you, you think that I will cause a commotion, but when I kill you, I will definitely not cause a commotion. Dong Huang Baiji's tone was cold. The moment I walked into this East Royal family, I was plotted against. Even these rooms are filled with dragon incense. It is as if they are trying to harm me. This is simply intolerable. Since you are so cruel to me, then don't blame me for not giving you any face. Ha ha ha. Dong Huang Baiji, although you have a pure bloodline, it is impossible for you to kill me silently. Dong Huang Ji laughed loudly. He was laughing at Dong Huang Baiji for overestimating herself. At this time, 3 figures walked into the room. She might cause a commotion, but I can. Yi Hua said faintly while smoking. Qing Su and Dou Fusher followed behind him. Dong Huang Ji suddenly turned his head around. I actually didn't notice them coming in. Yi Hua sat beside Dong Huang Baiji, Qing Su stood beside Yi Hua, and Dou Fusher closed the door and stood guard at the entrance. His meaning couldn't be any clearer: you will not be able to leave today. Just give up on this thought. Dong Huang Ji was naturally able to sense it as well, and he said gravely, looks like you are planning to go against the entire East Royal family. Yi Hua flicked the cigarette ash and said lightly, you used the wrong word. This is not a fight, this is a one-sided fight. One-sided fight? Looks like you don't know anything about the East Royal family. Looks like you are the same as other people, you don't understand the situation clearly. This time I brought my wife here just to cause trouble. Originally, I thought that since you two are a loving family, there would be nothing to cause trouble for me. However, I never expected that you still gave me an excuse to cause trouble. Yi Hua had been watching from outside for a long time, and he thought that Dong Huang Baiji had already settled everything. But when he came back, the Empress was still chatting with someone else. Thus, he didn't disturb her and eavesdropped on them from outside. Feeling that it was about time, Yi Hua walked into the room. After all, it is time for me to flaunt my strength. I said that I will take turns to act cool. Then, I would like to see how you two are going to kill me silently. Dong Huang Ji said in disdain, and a sharp aura was emitted out from him. Yi Hua flicked the cigarette but that was on his finger and said faintly, originally, I planned to insta-kill you, but you felt that I wouldn't dare to kill you openly. This made me a bit surprised. In this world, there is nothing that I, the Supreme Overlord, don't dare to do. Just when Yi Hua finished speaking, a powerful aura suddenly blossomed, forming a powerful airwave. The room was instantly blown over, and Wan Wan, who was sleeping at the side, immediately let out a scream. I thought that someone was going to kill me, and when she saw Yi Hua, who was not far away, she hurriedly ran over. Not a single building in the surroundings was spared, and all of them collapsed. Everyone felt and even heard such a thing happening in the Orange Building. Dong Huang Ji, who was hosting the youngsters' assembly, frowned. What is Uncle doing? Something's wrong. This aura isn't Uncle's, there isn't even a bit of bloodline aura, it belongs to someone else. Jiang Wuyu, who was sitting at the side, said in a low voice, something happened here. I know. Dong Huang Ji immediately disappeared from the spot, and Jiang Wuyu hurriedly followed after him. Today the Dong Huang family will not be peaceful anymore. As the disciples of the Orange Building, they all rushed towards the location of the incident. Right now Dong Huang Baiji was a bit dizzy. Yi Hua is trying to blow this matter up. I originally wanted to kill Dong Huang Ji stealthily. Does Yi Hua really think that I am afraid of him? You all treated my woman like that, how can you all not pay the price? Do you all really think that my temper is that good? You are truly thinking too much. Dong Huang Ji didn't expect that Yi Hua would actually dare to do such a thing. With such a huge commotion, everyone in the Dong Huang family would definitely know about it. The matter went out of control again, and this caused Dong Huang Ji to be very angry. This man is truly crazy. End of this chapter. Chapter 1245. After all, Dong Huang Ji still wanted to continue living here. However, Yi Hua was different. He stood on the side of reason and did not need to consider his face at all. Since the other party was already bullying me, do I still have to give in? That's impossible. Yi Hua felt auras flying over. The first to appear was naturally Dong Huang Ji. There was another person that Yi Hua did not recognize, and that person was naturally Jiang Wuyu. Very quickly, the surrounding area was filled with people from Donghuang family. Everyone was very confused. Uncle and Donghuang Baiji? What is going on? Donghuang Ji looked very solemn and his face was very gloomy. Jiang Wuyu, who was standing not far away from Donghuang Baiji, tightly wrinkled his brows as he looked at Yihua and Donghuang Baiji. What is going on? Donghuang Ji asked in a low voice. As the family master, he had to display the dignity of a family master. Yihua stood up and said faintly, although you are the family master, shouldn't you greet your big sister when you see her? Donghuang Ji. Yihua wanted to make things clear to everyone. The disciples who did not know what was going on were all stupefied. Donghuang Baiji is the family master's big sister. I have never heard of the family master having a big sister. Donghuang Ji was very angry. This man is going to leak out this scandal. Jiang Wuyu was even more astonished. This woman is actually Donghuang Ji's big sister? When did I have a big sister? Didn't I only have big brother? The surrounding people immediately started discussing. Donghuang Ji shouted out angrily, everyone quiet down. Audacious. You are actually spreading rumors. Donghuang Ji shouted out again. Of course he had to redeem the family master's face. This kind of thing definitely cannot be leaked out. Yihua sneered and looked at Donghuang Baiji, seemingly saying that your blood brother really doesn't like you. Compared to Donghuang Baiji, Yihua seemed to be much more fortunate. At least his blood brother acknowledged him as his big brother, and he was very obedient. However, Donghuang Baiji's blood brother would rather care about his face than acknowledge her as his big sister. This was truly disappointing. Indeed, Donghuang Baiji could feel the disappointment in her heart. Right now she did not feel like a family at all. To her, these people were even more unfamiliar than strangers. Yihua said faintly, the two of you want to monopolize the pure bloodline, what a great scheme. Nonsense. I, the Eastern monarch, will never do such a lowly thing. The aura of the Eastern monarch pole spread out, and there was an indescribable feeling of holiness, which made this sentence much more believable. The Eastern monarch Ji had indeed not done such a thing. This was the truth. Yihua looked towards Donghuang Tachi, the great uncle in everyone's hearts. What about you, Donghuang Tsai? Yihua questioned. This time, Donghuang's face was calm. He said, you two, I'm afraid you've misunderstood something. However, it seems like you two are declaring war on the entire Eastern royal family. Yihua let out a deep sigh. This is what it means to dare to do something but not dare to admit it. Yihua patted on Donghuang Baiji's shoulder, indicating that she can let out a sigh of relief. Even if I killed them, I wouldn't feel any guilt at all. Donghuang Baiji slowly closed her beautiful eyes. It seemed like she no longer had any thoughts in her mind. This was exactly the attitude that Yihua wanted. He looked at the crowd and said in a deep voice, that's right. This sovereign is declaring war on your Donghuang clan. For so many years, there has never been such an arrogant person who dares to stand in front of the family head and say such a thing. One who was standing at the back was scared silly. Is there a need to be so arrogant? After all, this is the Eastern royal family, can't you be a bit more low profile? Low profile? That doesn't exist. Jiang Wuyu's expression was grave. I'm afraid that today won't be a peaceful day. Your Honor, please allow subordinate to come down, I don't want to dirty your hands. Qing Su, who was standing at the back, said respectfully. Yihua said faintly, it has been a long time since I fought and I want to exercise my body. I hope that I can warm up a bit. Donghuang Tachi shouted out coldly, don't be so arrogant, this is the Eastern royal family. It is precisely because we are in the Eastern royal family that I am giving you all face. If not, I wouldn't even have said a single word. Yihua said in disdain. I am giving you all face but you all don't want it. Inexperienced child, you truly don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Donghuang Tachi took a step forward and released an overflowing killing intent. Even the air was trembling and everyone could feel Donghuang Tachi's anger. Seems like great uncle is going to make his move. Do you all only know how to talk glibly? Donghuang Tachi's figure disappeared from where he was and appeared in the sky behind Yihua. Donghuang Tachi's right fist smashed down. This fist contained the might of heaven and earth, and the entire sky seemed to be trembling. The fist emitted out a scorching aura as it smashed towards the back of Yihua's head. Donghuang Tachi felt like he could see this poser's head exploding. A lowly man dares to be arrogant here. I don't know where your courage comes from, and you even dare to call yourself the supreme overlord who gave you the courage. Although Yihua's strength isn't as strong as Yi Zizi's in actuality, he is already very strong. It's just that Yi Zizi is more terrifying. Towards this kind of fist, Yihua didn't want to use any flashy moves to deal with it. I only need a single fist. No, it's a slap. Bah. A loud and clear sound suddenly rang out. The sound was deafening and pierced through the entire world. Everyone was dumbfounded and looked at the scene in front of them in disbelief. What just happened? Why did it become like this? Behind Yihua, a large crater appeared, and within the large crater, a figure was lying on the ground. Without needing to think too much, everyone knew who the figure was. Yihua stood with his hands behind his back and said faintly, "Flashy and useless." All the disciples were shocked. Donghuang Jieshang and Jiang Wuyu's jaws almost dropped to the ground. This man. He slapped Donghuang to the ground. Donghuang, who was in the crater, was trembling slightly. He placed both of his hands on the ground as if he wanted to stand up, but he didn't have the strength to do so. But this time, Donghuang's heart was filled with shock. Just now, he didn't even see the other party's movements, and he already felt a huge force on his face. His mind went blank, and the huge impact made him unable to stand straight. Even now he couldn't think straight. Wan was stunned. This man could actually slap Donghuang to the ground. Was this still a person? Was that a god? Donghuang was considered one of the best in the 9 states and 5 seas this time, and yet he was taken care of so easily? Donghuang Baiji didn't say anything. Even if these people were to die, I wouldn't feel any heartache. After all, they only have themselves to blame. This move of Yihua shocked everyone, and they basically did not dare to make any movements. After all, the one that was beaten up was Tai Shu. He was no small fry. At this moment, Yihua took out a cigarette and lit it up. He took a deep breath and exhaled. Not dead yet? He seems to have some ability. Everyone took in a breath of cold air. Not dead means that he has ability? Then if he died? That means that he doesn't have any ability? Donghuang Jieshang vomited out a mouthful of blood. Until now, he still didn't understand why he lost. There are still a lot of big moves that I didn't use. End of this chapter. Chapter 1246. Flicking away the ash from his cigarette, Yihua looked towards the person he was talking about. As expected, "You are unable to let me exercise my muscles and bones." Who is the next one? The East Imperial Pole? Are you coming up? With the cigarette in his mouth and both of his hands inside his pocket, Yihua's actions were insufferably arrogant. Wan was already stupefied. Just who is this person? To actually be able to deal with Donghuang, this old man, with a single slap, and even now he is still twitching. Was he going to die? Right now, Donghuang's entire body was twitching. It was as if he was struggling before death. Donghuang Baiji was able to see everything clearly. However, right now she did not feel any pity for Yihua at all. Of course, Donghuang Ji also saw it. He didn't have any impulsive thoughts in his heart, but as the family head, he still had to say what he should. How dare you kill granduncle? Too arrogant. Donghuang Extreme Supreme roared furiously. This kind of person was simply infuriating. Yihua snorted coldly, "So it is only now that you realize that I am indeed very arrogant. I'll give you a chance." This time, Donghuang stopped convulsing. He died just like that, directly killed by a single slap from Yihua. A golden primordial spirit floated out from Donghuang's body, and the primordial spirit fled at high speed. Only those who experienced it would know just how formidable that slap of Yihua's was. That was the most terrifying slap that Donghuang had ever seen. I have still underestimated these people too much. But could Donghuang escape this time? It was obvious that he couldn't escape. The golden primordial spirit gradually turned dark green before falling from the sky. It fell to the ground with a thud and turned into a pool of green water. That was a little scary. How could his primordial spirit turn into water? Who did it just now? The man didn't move at all, and the people behind him didn't move either. However, Wan knew that it was definitely that fatty who did it. Jiang Wuyu already had a fearful expression on his face. In front of them he was completely defenseless. Hopefully Donghuang Ji wouldn't be rash as well. If he were to do so, he would definitely die. Now was not the time to be impulsive. But Donghuang Ji was the family head. There were some things that he had to say. Otherwise he would lose face today. "Don't look like you want to kill me. Why don't you make a move?" Yihua swayed his palm, indicating that the slap just now was very pleasurable. Especially that instant when the slap went down, that slap sound was extremely shocking. However, Yihua had to admit that he had indeed used too much force just now. If he didn't use too much force, he wouldn't have been able to slap Yihua to death. Everyone around them knew that if this man could slap Taishu to death with one slap, then he could slap anyone present to death. Yihua crooked his finger towards Donghuang Ji. Donghuang Ji didn't want to step out, but his body didn't listen to Yihua and floated forward. The disciples could only watch as their patriarch was humiliated by the bad guys, but they did not dare to do anything. After all, the bad guys were too ferocious. Rushing forward was no different from courting death. Eastern Emperor Zhou Xian, speaking of which, I still have to call you brother-in-law. Yi Hua laughed lightly. Donghuang Zhou Xiang's expression was not good. Right now, I will give you a chance to live. Call for help. Yi Hua said faintly. He wanted me to acknowledge Donghuang Baiji's identity. Didn't he say that it was fine just now? A struggle appeared on the Eastern Monarch pole, as if he was making a decision. When Jiang Wuyu, who was in the group, saw this scene, he somewhat wanted to leave, but he was afraid that he would be caught the moment he turned around. That would be even more tragic. Seeing that Donghuang Ji was struggling, Yi Hua said faintly, "Seems like I have to give you some motivation." "No need, I will call for help." Donghuang Ji was naturally a smart person. Since I am going to call for help, I might as well call for help now. If not, when I get beaten up later on, I will still have to call for help. Donghuang Ji raised his head and looked towards Donghuang Baiji, then shouted out in a low voice, "Big sister." Louder, did you not eat? Yi Hua really wanted to give Donghuang Baiji a slap. Donghuang Ji felt as if he was dreaming. I am the patriarch. Why is it that after they came, I seem to have become a lackey? No. I'm even more miserable than a lackey. Big sister. Brother-in-law. Donghuang Ji shouted out loudly. The corner of Yi Hua's mouth twitched. I didn't ask you to call for me. Donghuang Ji felt wronged in his heart. You are the one who said that if I call for help, then I will definitely include you. However, when everyone heard Donghuang Ji's words, they were all very astonished. Donghuang Baiji is actually the patriarch's big sister. Why didn't I know about such a thing? Just how many secrets are there that everyone doesn't know about? Yi Hua took a look at the surrounding people, then said towards Donghuang Ji, "Speak, tell me everything that happened." Donghuang Ji didn't want to speak. He looked towards Donghuang Baiji, who was at the back. I really can't speak about this. If I speak about this, the consequences will be very serious. The Donghuang family will really become the laughingstock of everyone. Donghuang Baiji chose to ignore Yi Hua's words. Towards this family, her heart is already cold. There's nothing that she wants to say. Yi Hua can do whatever he wants to do. Brother-in-law, listen to me, this concerns indestructible shrine. Every single family is authoritative. If I were to speak about this, the authority of the Donghuang family will be lowered, and the power of sealing the shrine master will also be lowered. Therefore, I really can't speak about this. Yi Hua let out a heavy sigh. I am asking you to speak, so speak. What indestructible shrine? Hurry up, I don't like people who waste time. I really can't speak about this. Yi Hua could be seen saying in a low voice, I heard that after you die, that shrine master will be released. You? Donghuang Ji Shang looked at Yi Hua in astonishment. This man is going to release Palace Master. Yi Hua nodded his head and didn't deny it. That's right, I am going to get the Palace Master out. I want to see just how formidable this Palace Master is, to be able to bewitch even my subordinate. You simply don't understand how powerful that Palace Master is. Donghuang Ji said in a deep voice. This man was definitely crazy, a madman. Yi Hua snorted coldly. Who does he think he is? Be or die. Take your pick. Facing Yi Hua's threat, what else could Donghuang Ji do? He could only say, this is what a smart person should be. Even if I die, I will still release him. Even if I don't die, I will still have to release him. I might as well just stay alive. How good is it to be alive? As Donghuang Ji spoke of the truth, everyone was shocked. This Donghuang Baiji was actually so pitiful. Even the old patriarch and grand uncle wanted to obtain the bloodline and even wanted to kill him. Simply too inhumane. As a member of the Donghuang clan, they all felt ashamed. Jiang Wuyu knew that it was over. That Palace Master is definitely going to come out. Damn it, I have to go back and make preparations immediately. If that Palace Master comes out, he will definitely kill all of us one by one. After Donghuang Ji finished speaking, he collapsed onto the ground, and his eyes became lifeless. Today was the day of humiliation for the entire Donghuang clan, and it was all because of this man and woman, stirring up trouble. Yi Hua was very satisfied and asked in a low voice, that Palace Master should be able to come out, right? 7 days later, the seal will be reinforced. End of this chapter. Chapter 1247. Before Donghuang Ji could finish speaking, Yi Hua said, that's right, even if you don't go, you will still be able to come out. Donghuang Ji, if that's the case, why didn't I say it just now? Right now, my face is on the ground and I don't have the face to be the family master anymore. Don't run away these few days if I find out that you ran away. Yi Hua gave him a death stare, then looked at Donghuang Baiji. After all, he is my blood-related little brother. If I really kill him, I won't be giving my wife any face. Don't look at how the Empress doesn't mind, but if I really kill him, I will feel a little emotional. After all, he is my blood-related little brother. Yi Hua brought Donghuang Baiji and the others and left. However, they didn't leave the East royal family, and instead chose another good place to stay. At the scene, Donghuang Ji didn't have the face to face everyone, and he directly disappeared from where he was and went back to seclusion. However, Donghuang Ji's corpse was still there and no one went to touch it. This old man is very bad, to even lay his hands on his own niece. This old man is simply shameless. He was directly slapped to death. What a good slap. The disciples slowly left, but what happened today had already spread to the other floors, and even some odd job workers knew about it. And those odd job workers spread the news one after another. Gossip will never be able to be hidden. Inside a broken temple in the 9 provinces and 5 seas. There were a few figures standing here and 2 skeletons were very conspicuous. However, the 2 skeletons were standing behind a man, and that man was naturally Wei Chang. Wei Chang was a bit flirtatious. A strand of hair was naturally hanging down from his forehead, giving off a feeling of a prodigal son in love. The rigidity that he had in the past disappeared, and he became a playboy. Look at the folding fan in his hand, there are even words written on it. Flirtatious. Truly unique. The one standing at the side was the Imperial Commander, Falling Dust. The woman behind him was precisely that ferocious drunken cry. There was also a stranger man. This man seemed a bit cold and didn't speak much. His eyes, there were dark circles around his eyes, or maybe it was smoky makeup, but it was still quite unique. At least the big sister likes this look. That golden nose ring was also very prominent, giving off a feeling that I want to hold on to it. Of course, that steel-like earring was also a bit rough. I'm really worried that the earring might get inflamed and become pustules. After all, that earring seems a bit rusty. Big brother. In any case, you should at least change it to a gold one. Why are you bringing a rusty one? However, this person's facial features were not bad. They made up for these flaws. If he wasn't good-looking, why would he do this? That must be a non-mainstream person. After all, that afro was very eye-catching. This was Lord Ming, whom Wan Wan was infatuated with. That's right, his real name was Lord Ming. These people could be considered the main force of the imperishable shrine. Of course, there were also many underlings. The palace master should be breaking the seal soon. Falling Dust acted like a normal person. He held a tattered broom and spoke as he swept the floor. Drunken Cry, who stood at the back, did not say a word. She looked at everyone warily as if she did not trust anyone. I'm really looking forward to the hall master's arrival. Wei Chang opened his arms as if he was going to hug the palace master. His worship was a little crazy. The death mage and death assassin who were standing at the back couldn't understand. Their thoughts were still there, but they couldn't disobey orders. As for why their master betrayed them, the death mage and death assassin were also very confused. Looking at this unfamiliar master in front of them, the 2 skeletons were also very confused. Humph! Putting on an act. Lord Ming snorted in disdain. Seeing that the 2 of them were going to quarrel with each other, Falling Dust hurriedly mediated. All right, are the 2 of you enemies? The 2 of you quarrel whenever you are together. Falling Dust. This is an outsider and you actually recruited him. How do you know if he is truly relying on us? What if he is only pretending? Lord Ming questioned coldly. In his heart, he doesn't believe that Wei Chang joined us normally. Look at that exaggerated action of his, it looks so fake. Following Lord Ming's words, the 2 skeletons went into a daze. What Lord Ming said makes sense. Perhaps, Master is pretending to be relying on us to obtain information for his honor. Wow, Master is so quick-witted. Lord Ming. Wei Chang is naturally loyal to the palace master. Could it be that the mark on his forehead doesn't prove anything? Falling Dust said helplessly. The mark on his forehead is an exclusive mark. As long as it is marked on his forehead, he will have to obey the palace master unconditionally. Lord Ming snorted coldly. Mark? To a powerful person, a mark is nothing. Lord Ming. Are you questioning the palace master's strength? Falling Dust shouted angrily. The atmosphere between the 2 of them immediately froze, and it seemed like they were about to fight. At this time Wei Chang laughed and said, Lords, the palace master is about to come out, please calm down. I reckon that the palace master doesn't want to see the 2 of you arguing with each other, right? There is no need for you to pretend to be kind here. Lord Ming shouted in disdain. Lord Ming. I will report your actions to the palace master in detail. Do whatever you want. This fellow is a spy. I have already seen through him. Both of you will regret this. Lord Ming pointed at Wei Chang and shouted. Wei Chang held onto his forehead and said helplessly, Lord Ming, I don't seem to have provoked you. Why are you targeting me like this? I am targeting you? You are one of the 7 sins, Wei Chang. Do you think that I don't know you? I don't believe that you will betray us just like that. Wei Chang let out a long sigh. Sigh, you don't know how painful it is to work under his honor. You have to listen to him. If you don't listen, you will be scolded. Even if you do the right thing, you will still be scolded. You can only endure it. I have long been sick of this kind of life. So, I'm taking this opportunity to leave. Fiske. You speak as if I will believe you. Lord Ming said in disdain. In any case, he didn't believe Wei Chang. However, Falling Dust still believed Wei Chang because he saw everything, but Lord Ming didn't see what happened. I believe that Wei Chang is loyal to the palace master. Lord Ming, you can shut up now. Humph. You will regret this. Lord Ming said coldly. Falling Dust revealed an apologetic look and looked at Wei Chang. Wei Chang expressed that he could understand. This kind of thing was very hard for others to accept. Alright, now let's talk about proper business. Falling Dust said gravely. Sweeping a glance at everyone, he said, the palace master is about to break the seal. Naturally, there will be no lack of killing. In this 9 provinces and 5 seas, I believe that everyone knows who sealed the palace master. At that time, the palace master will definitely kill that person. We will naturally follow the palace master and kill everyone. Let them know. The might of the imperishable shrine. Falling Dust's words were a bit hot-blooded, to the point that he was burning with passion. Drunken Cry, who was standing at the back, looked at Falling Dust's back, and a trace of tenderness appeared in his eyes. End of this chapter. Chapter 1248. Wei Chang asked curiously, when will the temple master appear? In a few days. Falling Dust said excitedly. The temple master was finally going to see the light of day. I'm so excited. I can finally see the temple master. What an honor. Wei Chang opened his arms again as if he was going to hug the temple master. However, Lord Ming snorted coldly. Keep acting. Falling Dust stopped talking. He was too lazy to speak. Wei Chang smiled and did not bother with him anymore. When are we going to welcome the temple master? Wei Chang asked curiously. Falling Dust smiled. In a few days we will go together to welcome the temple master. I believe that with our strength, those family heads can only tremble in fear. Of course. We will be loyal to the temple master. Wei Chang acted cool again, extremely sincere. Lord Ming snorted coldly. You are really not suitable for acting. Only these idiots will believe you. Lord Ming, I dare you to say another word. Drunken Cry shouted. She actually scolded the imperial commander. Drunken Cry. Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because Falling Dust is protecting you. Wei Chang smiled. Alright, we are all from the imperishable shrine. Stop arguing. If the temple master sees us being so disunited, he will not be happy. That's right. Wei Chang is right. We need to be united, Lord Ming. You better behave yourself. Falling Dust gave the final warning. Lord Ming snorted coldly and did not say another word. You will definitely regret it. You will not even know how you died. On the other side, Jiang Wuyu hurried back home to call for a meeting. His goal was for this matter. The East Emperor was dead. He was killed with a single slap. And that man's goal was to release the temple master. However, he did not seem to be from the imperishable shrine. But why would he release such a person? He really did not understand. Patriarch, from what you're saying, Supreme East Monarch will not appear this time? One of the elders asked in a low voice. Jiang Wuyu nodded. Yes, the East Emperor Pole will definitely not appear this time. Then the Temple Master will definitely appear again. When that time comes, the entire 9 states and 5 seas will be in danger. Then what should we do? Let's gather the other 2 families and kill that man. Are you stupid? He killed Dong Huang with a single slap, but if you go over, he will kill you with a single breath. Exactly. Then what do you think we should do? Are we supposed to wait for the Hall Master to come out and annihilate us one by one? Everyone quietened down when they heard this. Of course, it was the 4 great clans that were sealed. Based on the Hall Master's character, he would definitely take revenge on them one by one after he came out. Patriarch, what should we decide? There are only a few more days to reinforce the seal. We can't care about Dong Huang anymore. What we need to do now is to gather the strength of the other 2 families and prepare for the indestructible shrine. Jiang Wuyu didn't have any better ideas. There was no hope for the Donghuang clan, and he didn't know which side the Hall Master would choose. If he directly went to the Eastern Royal Clan, that would definitely be the best, but if he didn't go to the Eastern Royal Clan, then it would be very troublesome. Patriarch, you have to hurry up. We don't have much time. Jiang Wuyu felt the same way. There was no time to lose. They had to quickly gather everyone. Within the Eastern Emperor clan, Yi Hua was currently chatting with Eastern Emperor Ji Shang. You are saying that the indestructible shrine was sealed by you all? In that case, if the Hall Master were to come out, he would definitely come and look for you all? Yi Hua asked. If nothing unexpected happens, that should be the case. That Hall Master is a person who will definitely take revenge. Eastern Emperor Ji Shang's expression wasn't very good. I am clearly in my own territory, yet I feel as if I am being imprisoned, and I don't have any human rights at all. Seems like there is no need for me to go out and look for the Hall Master, they will naturally come over. Yi Hua laughed lightly. This is good too. I just have to wait for the Hall Master to come over. Of course there is also Wei Chang. Eastern Emperor Ji Shang remained silent. This man in front of me is a madman. Even a madman wouldn't do something like this. If the Hall Master were to be released, countless lives would be lost, and countless people would die under his blade. At that time, corpses would be strewn everywhere, and it would be hell on earth. Don't be nervous, it is just a small matter. Yi Hua said lightly. He took out a stick of cigarette and lit it up, then looked at the night sky. Right at this moment, Qingya's voice sounded out in Yi Hua's mind. Hubby, where are you? Baiji and I are outside looking for Wei Chang. How are the two of you doing accompanying Mother? Yi Hua asked lightly, and a trace of an arc could be seen on the corner of his mouth. Mother is very happy. We just came back from the Alps and Mother even went skiing. She is very happy. Hearing Qingya's tone, Yi Hua knew that Mother was truly happy. Yi Hua himself felt gratified as well. Are you planning to come back after playing for a long time? At least for 1 to 2 months. Mother is very interested in this place and she doesn't really want to go back anymore. After all, Mother is staying in the palace and Mother has nowhere else to go. Yi Hua let out a light sigh. That's right. When Mother is staying in the palace, she really doesn't want to go out at all. If I were to choose, I would definitely choose to stay on Earth as well. However, there are still a lot of things that I haven't finished here. Yi Hua, Mother said that this place is pretty good. Qingya said in a low voice. Yi Hua said helplessly, this is what Mother told you to say. Mother didn't want to tell you because she was afraid that you would get angry. It is more appropriate for me to tell you. Qingya smiled tenderly. Yi Hua pursed his lips. Wherever Mother likes to stay, then let her stay. In any case, it is not that long to go back and forth. Alright then, I will go and tell Mother. Qingya laughed lightly. What is Mother doing? Mother is dancing in the square. Yi Hua. That's right, Yi Hua, did you manage to find Wei Chang? Qingya asked curiously. Yi Hua let out a deep sigh. Soon Qing Su is already settled. That's good. Pay attention to your safety and pay more attention to the children too. Don't worry, I will keep an eye on the children's side, nothing will happen. And that's all then, I will be hanging up now. I'm hanging up. Yi Hua was clearly transmitting his voice, but he made it sound as if he was making a phone call. This is simply a phone call from a different plane. Yi Hua stood up and walked towards the house. Donghuang Jieshang was a bit confused. This man actually has a mother? Such a cold-blooded man, shouldn't he be an orphan? This is a bit ridiculous. Sigh. It's over. Donghuang Jieshang left with a look of despair on his face. That palace master's formidability is something that you will never be able to imagine. You have been released, but it is impossible for you to go back in. Furthermore, you will be tortured to death and even you will not be able to escape. You are too careless. You are too careless, however, he doesn't listen to you at all. What else can you do? If you insist on going your own way when the time comes, everyone will desert you. Brothers, next month is going to end soon. End of this chapter. Chapter 1249. After returning to the room, Yi Hua saw that Donghuang Baiji was currently in a daze. Baiji, what's wrong? Yi Hua muttered. Donghuang Baiji let out a deep sigh. I really want to leave this place, it's uncomfortable to stay here. Yi Hua patted onto Donghuang Baiji's head. We will return after a few more days. Just now, Qingya told me that Mother likes Earth a lot and decided to temporarily live there. That's right, that place is indeed good, I also want to go back and live there. Donghuang Baiji said softly. Yi Hua nodded his head. How about this, after I finish dealing with the matters here, we will go back and live there. Aren't you going to conquer the world? Donghuang Baiji asked confusedly. Yi Hua said faintly, let the children do this kind of thing. I am also a bit tired, it's better for me to live a peaceful life. Perhaps those few years of comfortable life affected me. Yihua, are you really planning to? Dong Huang Baiji said with a trace of happiness. In actuality, she didn't like this kind of life either. Going back and opening a bar is also pretty good. Yihua laughed lightly. Although that kind of life wasn't passionate, it was still very peaceful. Dong Huang Baiji seemed to be reminiscing about that kind of life. Then, after you finish dealing with the matters here, we will go back together. Let's settle the matters in front of us first. Yihua's gaze became grave. That palace master's strength is definitely not ordinary, otherwise Wei Chang wouldn't have betrayed us. In a few days' time, I might not only have to fight against the palace master, I might even have to fight against Wei Chang. Seems like I have to get serious too. I am a bit excited. After so many years, I can finally bring out my true strength. I am really looking forward to it in a few days' time. On the other side, Jiang Wuyu found the other two family heads and told them what happened. One of them was called Fu Wen, and the other was called Long Chu. The two of them were the strongest existences in the 9 provinces and 4 seas. After all, they were family heads and their strength was unquestionable. They were both high gods. Fu Wen's expression was slightly grave as he said softly, "There are still a few days before the seal ends, can we save Donghuang Jishang? I'm afraid it's a little difficult." Long Chu said coldly. His whole person seemed a little cold as if he wouldn't smile at anyone. Jiang Wuyu nodded and said, "That's right. This man was able to kill Donghuang Ji with a single slap. His strength is not something we can fight against. If we go and ask for him, I'm afraid we won't die in the hands of the hall master, but in his hands. If that's the case, then we can only fight," Fu Wen said solemnly. After hearing that, the three of them remained silent. Fighting is no different from dying. But if they didn't fight, they would still die. There wasn't much of a difference between the two. Perhaps if the three of them worked together, they might have a sliver of hope. However, if they were to split up, there was no doubt that they would die. The three of them looked at each other and seemed to have made a decision. As the peak existences of this continent, if they didn't go up, who would? "We need to be prepared," Jiang Wuyu said solemnly. Fu Wen and Long Chu nodded their heads. "Let's go back and prepare. This is a life and death battle." Long Chu coldly said and took the lead to disappear from the stone bench. Fu Wen nodded at Jiang Wuyu and disappeared from sight as well. Jiang Wuyu sighed deeply and looked at the sky. He knew that the hall master would come out one day. However, he didn't expect it to be so soon. These few days would probably be the most difficult days for the three of them. But there was nothing they could do. Should they run away? It wasn't that they didn't think about it. However, as a powerful being, they also had their dignity. Running away was out of the question. In a rocky hill in Tangzhou, there were all kinds of stones with strange shapes. But in a place like this, they didn't seem that important. However, these stones were indeed the key to sealing the hall master. They weren't ordinary stones. They were the stones that suppressed the hall master underground and prevented him from coming out. However, 3 figures stood on top of the rocks. These 3 people were naturally Jiang Wuyu, Long Chu and Fu Wen. The weather today wasn't very good. It was drizzling, but for the 3 deities, the raindrops were evaporated by the strong airflow before they could even land on them. Although there are only 3 of us, we might as well give it a try. It would be even better if we could strengthen the seal. Long Chu said coldly. His tone was still calm and composed. After all, they weren't scared. Jiang Wuyu and Fu Wen nodded. Although they didn't believe it themselves, they still had to give it a try. If one looked down from the sky, they would see that the 3 people were standing at the edge of the spell formation. However, there was a corner that was empty. That was Donghuang Ji. It was a pity that he didn't come today. In the name of the heavens, bless the world, might of the earth, suppress the evil soul. The 3 people raised their hands high and shouted with a strong aura. This reinforcement didn't come from their strength, but from the power of faith that the entire 9 provinces and 5 seas had for the 4 great families. However, there probably weren't many members of the Donghuang clan left now. When the news spread, everyone's impression of the Donghuang clan fell to the bottom. They didn't expect the Donghuang clan to be so evil that they raised their children like pigs and dogs. Yet they actually respected them. What the hell? The 3 people also knew that even if Donghuang Ji came today, it wouldn't help. Along with the 3 people's shouts, a ray of light descended from the sky. The 3 people stared at the ray of light. They had seen it many times, but this time it was clearly different. It wasn't as thick as before, it was much thinner, and even the color was much dimmer. The 3 people didn't expect that just one person missing would be so serious. The seal had at least decreased by 50%. Along with the injection of the ray of light, The surrounding stones started shining, but the aura that they were emitting was still very weak. Just as the three people were feeling helpless, a few figures suddenly appeared in the sky. These people were naturally Luo Qin, and Wei Chang was also among them. Jiang Wuyu looked over coldly and said gravely, "Indestructible Shrines people." Jiang family had good eyesight, you guessed it correctly. Luo Qin laughed lightly. He didn't have any intention of stopping them and allowed them to reinforce the seal. Fu Wen and Long Chu's expressions darkened. These people are all from Indestructible Shrine. Their strength is definitely not ordinary. What are you all trying to do? Fu Wen asked gravely. Luo Qin said faintly, "Nothing much, you all continue with what you are doing, we will wait here for the palace master to break through the seal." The three people didn't say anything after hearing what Luo Qin said. They looked at each other and they could see the heaviness in each other's eyes. Just what are these people trying to do? Since they are already here, why aren't they making a move? After a while, all of the ray of light was injected into the seal. However, not only did the three people not feel happy, they became even more grave. Because the seal was only reinforced a little, it was very disadvantageous to the current situation. End of this chapter. Chapter 1250. Everyone, you've worked hard. Do you want to take a break and enjoy your last moments? Fallen Dust smiled slightly, appearing extremely confident. This confidence, of course, came from the powerful temple master. But now they still had to rely on Wei Chang. Long Chu said coldly, "If you want to fight, bring it on." Patriarch Long, you've misunderstood. The temple master is about to appear, so we naturally won't interfere. It's good to let the temple master exercise. I hope you won't disappoint the temple master. Fallen Dust had his own plans. The temple master was about to break the seal, so he naturally had to see blood. If they killed them all, the temple master would probably not be happy. Hearing Fallen Dust's words, the three could not help but shiver. The temple master had been sealed in the previous generation. Dong Huangji's father had also died in the war, but this death had firmly sealed the temple master, which was considered a good thing. Although they could do anything for strength, when it came to the point of death, they could still sacrifice their lives. This was really extreme. The three did not say anything. They stood in the void, waiting for the temple master to arrive, and then making their final struggle. This spirit was admirable. The drizzle seemed to be getting heavier, making the atmosphere even more solemn. The surroundings were filled with rustling sounds. Long Chu looked at Fallen Dust's side. There were actually two undead, looking gloomy and uncomfortable. Patriarch Jiang, it seems like it's about time, Fu Wen said in a low voice. Jiang Wuyu nodded. The three of them had come early, so they were definitely prepared. To win, they first had to have a formation. For such a life and death situation, the three did not hide anything. They told each other everything they knew, and then used the strongest formation to deal with it. So when they came, the formation had already been set up, and they only needed to activate it. Great Sorrow Cloud Incantation. This was the Long family's top-notch formation. It could even suppress gods. Its main function was to ruthlessly suppress the opponent so that they could not use their full strength. Although the formation's function was simple, there were very few formations that could suppress gods. So few that only the Long family had such a formation. The three immediately separated, their hands emitting golden light. Golden runes appeared in the pile of rubble, emitting a thick aura that enveloped the rubble. Behind Long Chu, a huge illusion vaguely appeared. This was a Buddha statue. A divine aura washed over him. The Buddha's attribute was light, which was the natural nemesis of the undead. Although Death Mage and Death Assassin were powerful, this kind of formation that was able to suppress a superior god made them feel uncomfortable. After all, their attributes were mutually exclusive. There was nothing he could do about it. Yi Hua himself belonged to the undead race, and thus Yi Hua had a weakness as well, and that was the holiness. Just like the aura that this Buddha statue was emitting out, it was definitely capable of making Yi Hua feel uncomfortable. Wei Chang could feel the movement of the two skeletons behind him, but he did not make any movements. Death Mage was, after all, a master mage. He immediately enveloped his entire body with a black barrier, and at the same time he also helped his little brother to cast a black barrier. Only then did he feel slightly better. However, this kind of protective shield is not something that can be used all the time. However, Death Mage can feel that the aura that this Buddha statue is emitting out is becoming stronger and stronger. To the undead, this was double the damage and could easily destroy them. The three of them saw that the undead in the Temple of Indestructible were in pain. They had a feeling that they were indeed very strong and even they were in pain. This kind of self-consolation was fine, but they soon realized that the other team's main force didn't react at all. Wei Chang could feel that the aura was powerful, but he could directly ignore it. After all, the other team's strength was right there. Fallen Dust and Lord Ming were definitely not as strong as Wei Chang, and their strength was not much weaker than the few family heads. If they were stronger than the 3 family heads, they would have long come over to destroy the temple of indestructible god Wei Chang. The reason why Fallen Dust was so confident was because Wei Chang was here. What a powerful formation. Fallen Dust laughed in a low voice. He agreed with the other party's strength. These 3 people are indeed worthy of admiration. Even though they knew that they were going to die, they still didn't hesitate. Jiang Wuyu and the others didn't say anything, and they were unable to calm down for a long time. Clear heart formation. Jiang Wuyu shouted out gravely. This time it was Fallen Dust's turn to be shocked, and even that Lord Ming was shocked. According to convention, one cannot add another formation to a formation. However, this was a formation. This was unprecedented, which was why the 2 of them were so shocked. This was one of Jiang Wuyu's trump cards. Clear heart formation could be added onto any formation. Its purpose was to strengthen our battle strength and weaken the local strength. However, when stacked with the Great Compassion Cloud incantation, it was still a power that couldn't be underestimated. It could greatly weaken the local strength and strengthen our battle strength. Sword art. Fu Wen shouted angrily, and his hands quickly formed seals. A white cloud condensed in the sky, and it was as if a heavenly eye had been opened. A sword hum pierced through the earth, and it directly descended with a powerful aura. This was a huge sword that was 300 meters long, and there were strange markings carved on the body of the sword, which gave off a dangerous feeling. However, this sword directly stabbed into the center of the formation. All of a sudden, the 2 formations were strengthened. That illusory Buddha statue seemed to have materialized, and a buzzing sound rang out in the air. This was a declaration of death to evil. Pa! The Death Mage and Death Assassin's shields instantly disappeared, and terrifying screams came from their mouths. They couldn't withstand this holy attribute at all, and to them this was a fatal injury. Trash, Wei Chang said in a low voice and directly kept his 2 subordinates. Lord Ming, who was at the side, coldly snorted. Fallen Dust glanced at him but didn't say anything. Meanwhile, Drunken Cry slightly furrowed his brows, and he looked at Wei Chang with doubt. Wei Chang gave Drunken Cry a mysterious smile, and this caused Drunken Cry to hurriedly retract his gaze. Sword art was one of Fu Wen's trump cards, and its effect was to strengthen the effects of the formations. This was simply a perfect match, and it allowed the 2 formations to display their full potential. However, other than strengthening the formations, there was also the sword formation that could be used to attack the enemy, and of course, it had to be activated. These 3 formations complemented each other, and it was able to make the Palace Master suffer as much as possible. However, this was only one of the trump cards of the 3 family masters. To be able to become a huge family in the 9 provinces and 5 seas, it was impossible for them to not have some trump cards. Right now, Fallen Dust's expression was a bit grave. Seems like I have still underestimated them. At the same time, Fallen Dust acknowledged his decision, and if Wei Chang wasn't here today, it would be hard to say. Wei Chang appeared very indifferent. One of the 7 deadly sins, that wasn't a joke. After releasing these trump cards, the 3 family masters felt a bit more at ease, because they saw the grave expressions on each other's faces. End of this chapter.